Andrew Hawkins returns to talk about Thor, new Lucifer, and more here on Midnight's Edge in the morning. It's Monday morning, evening, afternoon, middle of the night, whatever it is where you is. Welcome to Midnight's Edge in the morning, because it's morning in the U.S. I'm Tom Connors, and with me as always, the boss man, Andre. How you doing?
Greetings, everyone. Thanks for having us. I'm good. How about yourself in lovely, snowy Wisconsin?
Don't ask. I hate snow. I hate it. I hate it. I don't even care if I ever see snow again. Like, that's where I'm at. Like, I really don't. But we also have a special guest with us, as I said in the intro, Mr. Andrew Hawkins of In Search of Tomorrow and In Search of Darkness and so many other projects. Welcome.
Hello, gentlemen. Thank you so much for having me back on. This is great.
Yes, we're glad to have you back. How you been doing?
I've been doing good. Thankfully, I've got a little bit of the break from the snow in the Pacific Northwest, but we're about to get hit in a couple of days. In the middle of everything, we're coordinating a lot of fun stuff for In Search of Darkness and In Search of Tomorrow and the films we've got coming. It's been a good time despite everything.
Awesome. Well, I got my 2 copies of each version, the first and second Into Darkness, right next to me here, and my poster and my pin, which I just got in the mail here a couple weeks ago. But if you missed out on that, we're actually going to tell you later how to get that again this week. So stay tuned for that. But we got some news to talk about. First of all, we got some super chats, though.
We do. So we're going to go through what you sent in already first.
Yes.
And on that note, greetings to everyone that's joining us today. It's so nice to see Dark Winter. Oh, that's a very nice name. Mr. Tickletrump is here. Uklaf Trallane, I guess. Roxiel. So we have many people joining us from all over the world. We really appreciate that. Max Mercer is here. Parrothead says Congo. And Stargate 404 starts us off with a $5 super chat. Thank you so much. Lucifer went very woke very fast. Couldn't even finish this most recent season. I can only imagine how much woker it will become now. Yeah, well, we shall get into all of that before long. Before that, we also got a super chat from Stephen Otten, who also says $5. Thank you so much. And he says, "Hail Midnight's Edge and everyone in the chat." Agreed completely. Hail one, hail all. Exactly. And Mr. Tickle Frank sent us a super sticker, which we really appreciate. And then we have dear F. Johnson says, "I swear, if Netflix mess with Lucifer, people are gonna riot."
Oh boy.
Yeah, but here's the matter. Which Lucifer are they talking about? We'll get into that. Spider Unlimited also sends us $9.99. Thank you so much for helping keeping our lights on. And he says, "Greetings. Thanks, Mead Radio, for starting the day off right and transitioning here for more great content on this blizzard of a day."
Yeah, we are having a lot of storms in a lot of areas. So if you're like me and you're dealing with the weather, hopefully you're bundled up and snuggled up and listening to us and you're warm and you got some hot cocoa or something to keep you warm while you listen. Spider Unlimited says, we just read that one, duh. I think we're caught up then. Nope, we got one more. I thought we did. We've got Willie Woodward for $2. Says, "Morning Midnight's Edge, morning chat." Thank you, Willie, for popping in. We appreciate it. I think I saw Rob in the chat here, didn't I? Yeah, he's here. Currently snowed in. Well, he might pop in here, so we'll see. That or he's shoveling, probably like I just was a bit ago. And our lovely Wrench Natasha is here, and she says, "Hit that like button." And speak of the devil, there he is. Hello, Rob.
Who told you?
Well, speaking of devils, let's jump right into Lucifer story. I suppose I should watch how I say that, considering now that Lucifer is female, I guess.
Hey, phrasing.
So, yeah.
Well, pleased to meet you. Hope you guessed my name.
Yeah, Rob, speaking of meeting, I don't know if you've ever met Andrew before yet.
No, I didn't. No. Hello, Andrew. How are you?
Doing great, Rob. Good to meet you. Good to have you on. I am always a fan of the Reverend Harry Krishna, big time.
That's yeah. I always tell people, if you don't recognize that, that is a deep dive Muppet movie joke, actually.
So great.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the main topic at hand, because I see many people in the chat are a little bit confused about exactly which Lucifer is being cast now. Now, I know, of course, that Tom is not too familiar with either the Sandman or the spin-off Lucifer comics or the series loosely based on them. Rob, I take it that you're not too familiar with that either, but Andrew, I know for a fact that you are very familiar with this. So why don't you just give us a brief introduction to what the Sandman comics are and how they lead into the Lucifer spin-off series, which was later adapted into the Lucifer TV series, but everyone is freaking out, might being recast right now before we get into the real story. So Andrew, what's the backdrop here?
Yeah, of course. Well, Sandman is basically Neil Gaiman's epic work. We all look back on that as being one of the greatest pieces of comic book IP series ever made. And it's this incredible, sprawling story of these ethereal beings that are interacting with the world. They have this amazing mythology. You've got the lead basically being this ultimate god dream character, Morpheus, and so many amazing moments through the entire series. And then that leads into the spinoff of Lucifer, which is the devil, essentially. And what we've gotten is this Netflix series that sort of loosely adapts that. But now we've got some really big news on where that's going to go next.
Indeed, we have. And just to address the super chat from Danny Boy here, Danny Boy says, for £5 Lucifer is being recast? You've got to be effing kidding me. This has got to be a wind-up.
Yeah, they're going to call it Lucy.
The answer is no, it is not to wind up. However, it's not entirely as you may think. Because here's the thing. The Lucifer that you are familiar with from TV, who incidentally right now is on Netflix, the Lucifer that is portrayed by Tom Ellis. You know that Lucifer? That Lucifer is based on the comic book series Lucifer, started by Mike Carey, which itself is a continuation of Lucifer's adventures as seen in the Sandman comics. So the chronology here is that Lucifer, the comic book Lucifer, he made his appearance in Neil Gaiman's Sandman, most notably in the fourth volume of the paperbacks called Season of Mists, which is where Lucifer basically quit hell, and he took Masikan and he went to LA to start the Lux nightclub there. That is where the Lucifer comics start, the spin-off from the Sandman comics. Now the TV series, that severed all ties to Sandman, and it just was a straight-up, very, very loose adaptation of the Lucifer comics. Whereas what we're having right now with Gwendolyn Christie, she's not actually replacing Tom Ellis as Lucifer. Instead, she is portraying Neil Gaiman's original Lucifer, the one which Tom Ellis is the current live-action iteration of. So she will be joining him in a very different iteration of the very same Neil Gaiman's Lucifer. Isn't that about a nice summary of the situation, Andrew, or is there something you would like to add to that?
Yeah, for the most part. One thing that I think is really interesting is that there is that real separation between Neil Gaiman's Lucifer and the Lucifer series that we've got on Netflix right now, because that series is the adaptation, sort of continuation from the spin-off book series. But then there's also that involvement of Constantine, which I think is really interesting. We've seen Lucifer show up in the CW and different shows, but we've also got the Constantine books that show Lucifer completely different from Neil Gaiman's. And Neil Gaiman's Lucifer and Sandman really is what Gwendolyn Christie is going to be portraying, which leads into the conversation about how is she going to embody this character that in so many ways was originally based off of David Bowie, wasn't it?
I believe so, yes.
And that's just
like,
aesthetically. It's kind of like talking about Tilda Swinton showing up in the Constantine film.
Yeah.
You've got that sort of connection there. So I wonder how it's going to play out. And more than anything, I just hope it's going to be good.
Yeah, that's a fun thing, though. Then John Constantine was visually inspired by Sting, while Lucifer was visually inspired by David Bowie. So that's pretty fantastic. And the movie iterations of Lucifer so far, or the live action ones at any rate, is then Tom Ellis as the procedural police Lucifer, and now Gwendolyn Christie.
And Tom Ellis is on his fifth season now, isn't he?
Yeah. Now you have one character inspired by David Bowie, and one character inspired by Sting. I mean, is there a character now inspired by Elvis Costello? I mean, we have to complete the trifecta here.
Well, given that DC Comics is now pretty much done for, I don't think there's going to be any more. But let's. So
where's Taron Egerton come into? Is that this one, or is that something?
No, that's a related story. We'll get into Taron Egerton before long. But first of all, let's now stick with Lucifer for the time being. Andrew, what are your thoughts on the TV series Lucifer with Tom Ellis, the one that we already have, and the one that will be completely unaffected by the casting of Gwendolyn Christie, because this is then a completely different iteration, albeit of the same character. Your thoughts on the series?
Yeah, well, I kind of stand in the camp that really looks at the series Lucifer as kind of fast and loose and fun. The presentation of the character is this sort of smarmy, charming, cool guy with that, edge of power of being essentially the Lord of Darkness. It's got an interesting narrative, the whole procedural side to it. And I haven't been keeping up with the latest of it. So as for where it's going right now, I'm kind of wondering how it's treating fans. Are you guys fans of it at all? Are you looking forward to where the series is heading now? Because it seems like some people aren't too happy.
Watched a few episodes. It was like, it was okay. Then I learned that the guy doing it, Len Wiseman, has ties to J.J. Abrams, and I just said, "Oh, I'm out."
Yeah, and as for me, I'm a big fan of the Lucifer comic. Like, I love that comic. To me, the spin-off comic by Mike Harry is almost as good as Neil Gaiman's Sandman. So when I was out after the pilot episode of Lucifer, not because Tom Ellis isn't blonde, but because it's just such a completely different iteration of the character that I just can't stand him. The way, oh, tell me your desire. My God, just give me a freaking break. So I can't stand that. Yeah.
You make it
hilarious.
That series. If you enjoy it, then good for you. But I can't stand it.
You make him sound like Stephen Lynch's portrayal of the devil. My name is Satan. Yeah,
That is the most animated I think I've ever heard, Andre.
Yeah.
Anyway, like that series, like if you enjoy it, good for you. But to me, it's just like an insult, and I can't watch it. So from that point of view, I would have preferred that they found someone more David Bowie-like for this Netflix iteration of Sandman, because that is where Gwendolyn Christie has been cast. But if they had to gender bend Lucifer, if they had to do that, then I feel that Gwendolyn Christie is a really inspired choice. Andrew, what about you?
Oh, sure. I was thinking, again, talking about how Tilda Swinton really steps up to the plate, I think, as Gabriel in the Constantine film. And for Gwendolyn Christie to do this, like I said, more than anything, I just wanted to come off as good. But really what's interesting is kind of like what you're talking about with the Lucifer show. This is not a direct adaptation of the work. and it might be completely tonally different. And that's really, a huge thing about, what your point is that the Lucifer show is completely different from the comic series, aside from character names, essentially. Is that going to be the same thing with this iteration of Sandman? Because Neil Gaiman has said so many times in the past that he does not want to do anything that isn't absolutely true to his work. And this really seems like it's straying from the original material.
Yeah, but what he also said was that for those that want a literal adaptation, please refer to the audiobook, which is on Audible. And that is, by the way, absolutely fantastic. Can't recommend that highly enough. So there we got our literal adaptation, and then they're going to be taking some more liberties. And gender-bending Lucifer evidently is one of those. On that note, I think that many people will be breathing a sigh of relief to find out that Tom Ellis isn't going anywhere as Lucifer. Gwendolyn Christie is simply playing a different iteration of the same character. And Danny Boy, he says for another £5, so your thumbnail was a tease. Don't joke about things like that. I was having a panic attack, LOL. So we didn't say she was playing the same Lucifer. We said some new Lucifer in town, which it is, on Sandman. So,
well, to be fair, you did put recast, but yeah.
Yeah, well, that's true. It's the same character that's being recast, because that it is. True. It's the same character
from a certain point of view.
Same character, but in a different universe.
Yeah, and then Exploding Prinny says, "Will Gwen's Lucifer? I'm going to call it Lucy. Yeah, end up being like Lucy from Karen Gillian's The Wicked and the Divine. Feels like they are treading the same ground, dude."
I'm not familiar with that. Could be. Well, I don't know who exactly which iteration they're going to take. Is that something you're familiar with, Andrew?
No, I'm not familiar with Wicked and the Divine, but one thing I'm thinking about is this whole Crisis on Infinite Earths thing. One discussion that's been brought up is that Lucifer is a character that transcends multiverses. So you're going to have the Lucifer that we all know from the Netflix show, and then we're going to have Lucifer from Sandman, and who knows how they'll exist in different ways.
I just find it hilarious that they're gender swapping basically the most evil character in the world. But anyway,
and it does significantly change the backstory of Lucifer as well. I know you being a fan, Andre, the buildup of the relationship of Gabriel and Lucifer, and then the whole falling from grace and being given the entire kingdom of hell and giving all of that up to go and open a bar in LA. I wonder how that's going to work out with a complete change of the character from the ground up.
Yeah, my worry is that it's not going to, because one of the things that I really dislike about the current Lucifer series is that it's a police procedural that stands in a way of a proper adaptation of the actual Lucifer comics that would have been vastly superior. So between that and this casting of Gwendolyn Christie, then that story in live action is quite simply out, and that's regrettable if you ask me.
That seems to be like the MO for anyone associated with the Bad Robot Camp. I mean, you come in and you take something and you make it a police procedural. Sleepy Hollow, police procedural. You know, I mean, even the biggest. What else was there? Help me out here, Tom. Clarice is going to be a police procedural.
Well, that was procedural kind of one.
Instead of a psychological kind of thriller, psychological thing. And obviously Hawaii Five-0 is a police procedural. We know that, but they always seem to make everything into a police procedural drama.
Andrew, if someone had told you like 10 years ago that there's going to be a Lucifer adaptation one day and it's going to be a police procedural, like what would have been your reaction to that?
I would have completely been pass. If that's what the idea was initially, that's fine, but there's the difference between taking a property and doing something completely different with it, and then taking something and adapting it faithfully. And Lucifer isn't a faithful adaptation by any means. It can be an entertaining cop drama detective story show, and a lot of people love it for the humor and the writing, and again, the bravado and charisma of the cast and everything. But without, that faithful adaptation, being a hardcore fan of that and Sandman way back when they were fresh and they were really important to the subculture communities and all of that stuff, that just would have been no thanks for me.
And it was from me, and it stands that way.
How do you put Lucifer in a cop drama? I don't understand.
Well, they did. That's exactly what they did.
That's what we got.
How do you have him own a bar? I mean, come on, it's oh god.
No, that was kind of cool actually, but the problem is he didn't keep that very long in the comics. Well, certainly for as long as I endured the series, he was still there. So I hate that series, and for those of you in the comics that like it, I do not begrudge you that. I hope you find some enjoyment out of it, but just knowing what you all missed out on in that series, I simply can't. I can't stand Tom Ellison, and I'll take Gwendolyn Christie any day over him for Lucifer.
Well, the odds makers are leaning heavily for Tom Ellis to be the next James Bond, and so I mean,
why?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah. Well,
when everybody wants Henry Cavill.
When everybody, yeah, and those who don't want Henry Cavill will still go back to Idris Elba and ask where did they vote. So.
On that note, Randy G for €5 is evidently wondering where the next Bond show is going to be. Tom, Rob, any thoughts on that? When's the next one going to be?
I've been asking Robert with Tango Shalom and stuff. He's been real busy. Best thing to do, I keep telling people because everybody keeps bugging me, start bugging him. Like tag him in tweets and stuff, because I've asked him like 3 times now and he has yet to really get back to me on it. So
I am really looking forward to seeing Tango Shalom. I don't know about you guys.
My guess is that he's just been so busy that he just hasn't found the time. But yeah, he said something about rescheduling. So hopefully we come up with something soon.
Yeah. And Ari Saka says for $2, Bucks for the Beals ref, my favorite Lynch song.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And Roger Haynes sent us a super sticker. And on topic of Lucifer, Mills says, thank God they're not recasting anyone from the series. Series his favorite Netflix show and one of my favorite shows on TV at the moment. See there, if you enjoy it, good for you. I will not begrudge you. I will not begrudge you that.
No.
But if you had read the comics, seriously, like in terms of an adaptation, that series did to Lucifer what Star Trek Discovery did to Star Trek. It's that bad. It's that grave an insult.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I really want to see with this new adaptation of Sandman is that the tone is still maintained from the comics. I want Gwendolyn Christie's Lucifer to still have that sense of power and that sense of almost being ready to snap at a second's notice if anything basically rubs them the wrong way. It's something that I hope gets maintained. I hope that there isn't some kind of change into unnecessary humor or, again, a ridiculous detective story. But the whole rest of the cast looks good, too. It seems like they've got some great players alongside. And I'm really interested to see what they do with, remind me, Andre, the character that has the teeth for the eyes. One of the first main villains in Sandman.
Not the Corinthian.
It is the Corinthian, yeah.
Yeah, Corinthian, yeah. Boyd Holbrook, who is playing him in live action.
See, there's potential.
Recently confirmed by Neil Gaiman. Yeah, I hope it will be good, because here's like the interesting part, because Neil Gaiman actually has an active role in this, just as he did with Good Omens. And speaking of Good Omens, he's been extremely critical of The Watch, the Discworld adaptation, which then, of course, is an adaptation of the work of his friend Terry Pratchett. He didn't hold anything back in his criticism of that. So, and he also has been very, very honest about his displeasure with the scripts for past Sandman adaptations that never happened, and how disappointed he was with those. So hopefully him being on board is a good thing for the series, that Although the story may differ, tonally, it will hopefully be the same.
Yeah, that's definitely what I'm holding out for.
Yeah. Stephen Otten says about the Lucifer TV series, watched the first half of the first season of Lucifer and found it boring. I'm not surprised it went woke, especially the way the cast acts online. I haven't seen anything of that, but I take your opinion for it. That series died from me very, very early, but at the same time as for you. And Darius Munchausen also sent us a super sticker, so thanks for that. And Willie Woodward says, Andre achievement unlocked. Backpedal master. So yeah, that's a good one. And Golgo13 says, the Lucifer show is pretty much a mummy porn procedural show. Fans of the source material aren't the target audience. Oh, you have that right.
Yeah.
I just want to say, I love that name, Gogol13. Great anime.
Awesome, awesome
Yes.
action anime. One of the best.
Yes. Yeah. But let's continue with the things that we learned about this Sandman series. It will have Gwendolyn Christie as Lucifer, which, again, she wouldn't be my first choice, but I think you're in agreement that she can be a very inspired casting choice. They certainly could have done much worse, couldn't they?
Oh, yeah, easily. They could have picked someone who doesn't even resemble the character at all. And I'm not saying that, the physical features are the most important thing, but that's a good sign that they're going with someone who you look at the comics and then look at her work and say, okay, this might actually do well if well written, well produced, well directed. Of course, all the technical objective stuff has to be in place for it to work for sure. And it's good that Neil Gaiman's a part of it.
Absolutely. Moving on from there, let's go through some of the rest of the cast. So for those of you who are into Sandman, here is our responses to it. Tom, you'll find this on the same page I sent you a little bit further down. Because there we have pictures of tweets from Neil Gaiman, who was the one doing the announcing. And for Morpheus, Dream of the Endless, is Tom Sturridge. Andrew, are you familiar with Tom Sturridge at all?
I'm not. I'm looking at his headshot. He looks like he could maybe jump into the character. It doesn't seem particular to me as stern as the image of Morpheus I always think of when I think back on Dream and the Sandman series. But what's he big for?
I have no idea. I've never heard of him.
That might be a good thing. Sometimes an unknown jumping in and taking on a major character could work. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. I will have to say, though, that after listening to the Dune audiobook in which James McAvoy was the one voicing the character, I'm a little bit disappointed that they didn't go with him for the actual character. But I will say that from this headshot, Sturridge looks more like him.
Oh, sure. And I got to check out that audiobook. I've heard nothing but great things about it.
I thought that was a DJ Khaled guy for a second, Jesus, so I got a good look. I'm like, oh, okay.
Oh, the character playing Abel?
Yeah.
The actor here?
Then before he shaved his head?
In Abel and Cain. I want to see how they get presented in the show for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's also then moving on. For Abel and Cain, we then have Asim Chaudhry and Sanjeev Bhaskar, respectively. So I'm sure that could be interesting. I don't have any strong opinions on that either way. How about you, Andrew?
Yeah, I assume we're going to see Abel and Cain maybe in Central Asia or somewhere in the Middle East, and have that be our genesis for the first murder, which is a huge part of Sandman as you go through the story. I think it's the first evil act that becomes a major point as we progress, and I'm looking forward to it. I want to see it done right. Yeah.
What I do like, though, is that Cain and Abel would have the story would have happened around the Middle East, Southeast Asia, that general corner of the world. So in that case, the casting is on. So that's pretty cool. And then, of course, we have Gwendolyn Christie as Lucifer, ruler of hell, as we've already covered. I like what Neil Gaiman says there. Casting Lucifer was a delight. I'm so very glad that Love Gwendolyn is the ruler of hell in Sandman on Netflix. That makes me curious. I wonder who else they were considering. If Lucifer was always going to be female in their adaptation, or if they were looking for men at the role as well and only went with Gwendolyn Christie for some reason.
Yeah, I wonder. And it would be cool to see the cast list of the wish list, who they wanted to get. Really, it's something that is big for a lot of Sandman fans and a lot of Constantine fans. And of course, the Lucifer fans of the show are going to be paying attention. So we'll see how it works out.
If I had to guess, it's probably because the rest of the cast is a sausage party, so they had to put a female in here somewhere. I'm looking, just a wild guess,
and a British female at that, so they could sell the show internationally. So, well, we got Charles Dance though from Game of Thrones, Sam.
Yeah, that's the next thing that he would be playing, and this is a pretty meaty role. The one who kicks the entire story into action, as Roderick Burgess. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Burgess captures Dream, and that's kind of the whole kicking off point, just like you said, of what the Sandman series goes into. I think what Morpheus has been asleep for like 1,000 years, and then it really does go into his interaction with the human world, and the line just gets more and more blurry of all of these ethereal beings dealing with people on Earth and impacting their lives and everything. Burgess is a really big character for sure, and I love Charles Dance. I've been a fan of his for as long as I've been seeing him on screen. I think one of my most notable favorite moments of his is from Last Action Hero for sure. But he's always great. He's been great for decades, and I think he's going to definitely kill it here.
I think that he's going to be very good in the role.
He'll bring a major threat to it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You need someone very authoritarian for that role, to basically believe that this is someone who could capture Dream of the Endless, and Charles Dance absolutely will make you believe that.
Basically capture a god. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we have Boyd Holbrook as the Corinthian Tooth Eye Man, as he was described earlier. An escaped nightmare. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, Boyd Holbrook's great when he shows up on screen. I think in this role, basically what the Corinthian is, as far as I remember, is just another almost godlike creature who's essentially a killer and is basically on the loose in the human world that has to get tracked down. But I wonder how they're going to pull off the effects. It's always a striking image whenever I read Sandman and I see this character, just the rows of teeth replacing the eyes. So I want to see it done right.
And then we have someone who is both gender bent and race bent. So Lucian from the comics has now become Lucien. Which honestly, like we knew it was going to in this day and age. They all warned us in advance that gender and race bending will happen, and both happened to Lucien, which I have no strong feelings for Lucien either way. So
yeah, he was just the keeper of the library.
Yeah, he was just kind of there.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully she'll be good. But then we've gone through the ones that have been announced, and there is one very, very important person who is missing here. Andrew, who's missing?
Yeah, where's Death? That's my big question.
Okay, then we have two who's missing. But
who are you thinking?
I was thinking of Constantine. Where is Constantine?
Hmm. Yeah, and I wonder if we're going to see the Constantine that we know from the series. I forget the actor's name, but he might even just show up in here since he plays a major role, just sort of weaving his way in and out of the Sandman series.
Yeah, because the one you were thinking about is, of course, Matt Ryan.
Matt Ryan, yes.
I am not convinced that this is going to happen because, as Gaiman already said, that they did not go with Tom Ellis for Lucifer because there's absolutely no way that this Sandman series could possibly tie in with the Lucifer series that's already out there. And I think that might be something similar with Matt Ryan's Constantine. And I say Constantine because that's how they pronounce it there. They did wrong, just like the movie. Because if you bring him in, then at the same time you kind of like canonize everything else. Then you canonize the entire CW universe with the Sandman series, and there's might be implications with that, given that one is on the CW and the other is now on Netflix, and the two don't really cross over in any way. So there's that. And also, what I've heard is that they might be going a different direction. So apparently there's going to be 3 different Constantines going forward. You have Matt Ryan, who's going to continue to be the CW Constantine, sorry, because that's how they say it. And then there's going to be one on the Sandman series at the same time as J.J. Abrams will be bringing in the 3rd Constantine for the Justice League Dark series that he's developing for HBO Max. So a lot of Constantine goodness going around there. Now, the rumor that was earlier in the week was that Constantine here would be portrayed by Taron Egerton, who is the same person to portray Constantine in the aforementioned Audible audiobook, which is fantastic. But here's the thing, that Neil Gaiman, he didn't deny that Egerton was Constantine when asked. He didn't deny that was the case. But he said that those that reported that, because this was reported in the late last week, they simply had him confused with the audiobook. So we don't actually know. So what are your thoughts? Do you think it could be Matt Ryan, or do you think it could be Taron Egerton? They're just waiting for the surprise. But if so, why would they wait?
Well, you bring up a good point, especially between Matt Ryan and what he's attached to, and then what this is going to be as a series with Netflix and the separation. And I think if Matt Ryan does get brought in for this, it's going to be a really big move, especially for fans, just like you're talking about. It would cement everything being canon from the CW, which I don't know if Neil Gaiman wants to be at the helm of that. But for Taron Egerton, I mean, if they brought him in for this, I don't see any issue with that. I mean, I know people are still out there clamoring for Keanu to come back for another movie, so maybe we can hold out for that.
Yeah. As for me, I hope it's Taron Egerton.
Because I think that could be cool.
I like Matt Ryan, but he comes with a baggage of all the CW things, which I certainly don't like. But Taron Egerton, he was perfect in the audiobook. He has the right look for a Constantine. So I sincerely hope it's him. I've heard rumors to the effect that it might be him. I'll honestly be disappointed if it isn't. Like if they're gonna like gender bend or do something else with Constantine 2, then I'll be upset. Then I'll be really upset. Like Lucifer was already ruined by Tom Ellis, so I could live with that. But if they mess up Constantine, now that I take personal.
Yeah, I think there are quite a few members of the cast that haven't been revealed yet, so we can certainly hold out hope.
Yeah, I hope that, because here's the thing, Gaiman, when asked, did not deny. He did not say no. He is not our Constantine. He only said no. They got that confused with the audiobook, but he's so spot on. That's
It sounds like a little bit of deflecting there. So
yeah.
maybe, yeah.
I hope it's deflecting. I hope it's doing what J.J. Abrams did. When it was revealed everywhere that no, it's actually Khan and not this John Harrison that they were pretending it was.
That fiasco.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's totally not Khan. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
Indeed. We have a few more super chats to go through before we move on from there a little bit. We had Adam Wofford, who asks for $5. Wasn't Bad Robot working on a Van Helsing series where it was about Van and his son and daughter hunting down classic monsters? Do any of you remember some of this? I seem to recall that something like this was in the works. Andrew, do you remember or know anything about this?
No, I wasn't tracking.
Tom, do you recall anything about a Bad Robot Van Helsing series?
Not offhand. Because, well, I mean, they could, because it's public domain character.
Well, okay. James Wan was supposed to relaunch Van Helsing, and it was going to be produced by Bad Robot. I don't know what the status of it is. This is I'm looking at it from December 1st, 2020. I don't know what the status of it is anymore, though.
I would imagine.
I was just going to say the real last thing I paid attention to Van Helsing was the old Hugh Jackman movie, so I've been out of the loop on that fan base for a bit.
Yeah. And I would imagine that if Bad Robot were going to do it, they would take a cue from that Hugh Jackman movie. In which case, I would say just ignore that and go back to what that movie ripped off, namely Solomon Kane.
Okay, yeah. I'm actually wrong here. It was going to be produced by Julius Avery, and he had produced something for J.J. Abrams. He had worked for J.J. Abrams for something called Overlord. That was produced by Bad Robot. So okay. I was actually wrong here, but there is an association. So
yeah, do we have any current status on that? Is that dead in the water?
I don't know. I honestly, I really don't know. I'll take a look here. Let's see.
So that Overlord movie that you mentioned, that was a 2018 kind of a World War II zombie horror film that I remember everyone was talking about, saying it was incredibly good. I have had that on the watch list for a while. But yeah, that was definitely getting into the sort of horror side of what I guess Bad Robot could try to pull off, and maybe Van Helsing kind of springing from that seems appropriate.
Oh, well, we'll see it. We'll see if it happens, which I think is a big if. And moving on from there, Stephen Otten, taking us back to Lucifer and related topics, says for $5, if you like the source material enough to adapt it, then respect the material you bought. Otherwise, you're just wasting everyone's time. That's kind of true. And the DCV Titan says, a woman is the ruler of hell, misogyny. So, yeah. And Darius Munchausen says, Andre, they could get Snooki to play a demon. I haven't heard any Snooki jokes for a long time.
Snooki,
there you go. All right. With that, any other strong thoughts on the Sandman series, one way or the other? Andrew, are you excited for it?
Like I'm saying, I hope it's good. I'm excited that Neil Gaiman's, leading the way, and I want to see it pulled off.
Yeah, I want it to bring me a dream and make it the cutest that I've ever seen.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly. Tom and Rob, do you think you guys could be excited for a Sandman series?
I think so. I mean, if it's done well, I know enough about. I've never read it, but I mean, I know enough about it, and I know enough about the world that I could probably get into it. But the thing is you say that the audio book or audio play version of it was good, because I thought I heard he was changing a bunch of shit for this version, and we've already seen the result as far as some of the swapping. But I'm curious what else is going to get changed.
Yeah. If any of the big story beats, if any of the, like we were talking about the tone, because Sandman originally was a huge property for the Gothic community, for people in the mid 90s who were just, like I said, subculture fans, comic book readers. And is that going to be maintained? Is that going to stay with this?
I just remember him saying something about modernizing it and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know how, hung up he is on modern politics. So I guess I'll have to wait and see, kind of thing. But yeah.
Yeah, we're all kind of in that same boat. How much of what our current state of politics and discussion and discourse and everything is going to make it into this adaptation? And is it really going to change the way that the events played out originally?
Indeed, it'll be interesting to find out.
Rob?
Rob, your thoughts?
Thoughts on Sandman?
Yeah, I would say or if you think the series is something to be excited about or look forward to.
For me, no.
No, that was easy.
I'm currently fixated.
There's not enough karate in it.
Exactly. Yeah. There's no karate. There's not going to be any nudity, so I'm out. So.
Well, we don't know about that, but
I was going to say.
Listen, I'm currently fixated on Resident Alien, so that's kind of my thing right now. So that's
Resident Alien will be over by the time Sandman is out. I mean, they haven't even.
Okay.
Actually, they are filming. They are filming it. They had to shut down filming while the UK is on lockdown, but they are filming apparently. And moving on from there to the next main topic of today. That's something else that is filming and in development, isn't it, Tom?
It is. What the heck was it we were going to talk about? I don't remember now.
Thor, Love and Thubnder.
Oh, Thor, that's right. Yeah.
Starring Guardians of the Galaxy.
So that's got some photos. I'll bring them up here.
Sounds like it sounds like an 80s hair metal album,
Well, people have noticed already that the outfit Thor has, or the jacket, is actually kind of a mix between a couple of things he's worn and wore before in the comics. We got some good looks at the Guardians of the Galaxy, of course, which I'm looking forward to having in the film, because otherwise I'm not looking forward to it too much. And there's one of my favorites right there. And there's
Sean
Gunn, and so we know he's back again too. So he must be he's got the Yondu thing on his head, so that's kind of cool. So we got a little look at a few things. So that's underway. It's happening.
No pictures of Natalie Portman though, huh?
No, none of Natalie Portman yet.
So they probably
see Thor with, I think it's either Stormbreaker or something new there.
Yeah. She's probably still trying to work out so she could lift the plastic prop hammer. So I mean,
speaking of working out, notice that Thor is no longer Fat Thor.
Good.
Good. Yeah, I pointed that out.
Metal Thor going on here with Mjolnir and the jacket. That's definitely 80s metal looking right there.
I want to see Frog Thor. I mean, come on, how far away are we from Frog Thor?
Probably not as far as you'd think.
Yeah, I wish Jake were here. Jake's the big Thor expert, right? So he would have a lot to contribute to this.
I'm semi looking forward to this. I like the fact that we get the Guardians Galaxy in it. I wonder how much they're going to be in it. I'm not so keen on the whole, Love and Thunder storyline aspect of it, but I guess
I keep coming back to my big problem is Natalie Portman is 4'11" and 98 pounds. Who is she gonna convincingly look like she's gonna rescue?
That's not even the problem I have, Rob, because as long as she has the power of Thor or what have you, That's it doesn't matter.
Doesn't make a
What she
difference. I
looks
mean,
like.
it's still. I'm not buying into it. I'm not buying into the scrawny Natalie Portman who had trouble lifting up a plastic prop hammer at Comic-Con. Then she was looking,
I'm
and then
not saying that's not
she
a fair argument, but
then the look she gave when she was walking off stage with Tessa Thompson, like, oh God, what did I get myself into?
That's how they probably got her back, which I don't know why they tried so hard to. Anyway, they should have just left her gone.
Actually, you know what? Jake actually brought up a really good point. Jake, and for Andy, Jake Bentley's a guy we have on the show. Funny guy, great guy. He said, when did the Thor movies actually really take off? When they got rid of Natalie Portman, and now they bring her back.
Yeah, evidently Rob is not looking forward too much to Thor Love and Thunder, which apparently, to remind everyone, is going to be an adaptation of the female Thor storyline with Natalie Portman as the new female Thor. Andrew, how excited are you for that, especially now that we've seen, well, we haven't seen much, but we know the Guardians are in it and Fat Thor is out of it.
I like that
make
change.
you feel?
Maybe the first half hour is going to be good, and then when Mjolnir gets passed over, I don't know. I want to have faith that Natalie Portman can carry it. I don't know if that's going to be the whole driving second and third act of what the entire story is. It's kind of up in the air for me. It's more of a we'll see than anything. As for being excited to go to the theater for it, I don't know if I'm gonna pay that ticket right away, but we'll see if it gets some good reviews.
Indeed.
I don't
know. There seems to be some agreement about that in the chat. The Fessman93 says, I hope Natalie Portman won't be Thor in future movies. Chris Hemsworth is Thor. I think there's pretty wide agreement.
Was that a cosplay, Tom, before? Was it somebody cosplaying?
Oh, on the on the throne.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Yeah, okay. All right. That's the game of the Iron Throne, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering too, is if Natalie Portman's gonna basically carry the title of Thor for half of the movie, and then by the end it goes back to Chris Hemsworth, or how that's gonna play out. I wonder.
Yeah, I don't think she'll be Thor for the rest of the series.
No, I don't think that for 1 second. I don't know anyone that's excited for that particular thing. So I think that's something, again, it's not called female Thor. I think that's something to draw you in. I think it's probably going to be a very little part of the movie about her actually having Thor powers. And I don't think she's going to have them by the end. But we'll see.
Well, if this whole thing, we keep hearing that they're building to an all-female Avengers, if there's any truth to that, then they're planting the seeds of the MCU destruction right now.
I don't believe it as much as some people are pushing it. Because, even Feige's backtracked a little bit on Captain Marvel being the most powerful Avenger, too. Now he's, back on Wanda being the most powerful one again. So
somebody that people actually like?
Well, yeah, there's that aspect of it. And I think it's pretty clear that Captain Marvel 2 might even be a passing of the torch now that we have, Monica Rambeau as a character in WandaVision. You never know. It'll be interesting to see. Even still, I have a hard time believing they're going to go that crazy because the X-Men have a lot of strong female characters. There's no sense in, changing too many of the other characters they got coming up because, even if they don't bring back Captain America and Iron Man in major roles, what do they have? Outside of Spider-Man, which is over at Sony, they don't have much.
I saw that CBR article. I would say CBR is good for a laugh. That's why I have them on my Twitter feed. Shang-Chi could be the moral center of the MCU going forward. And the audience is reading that, and
that's the thing. We haven't seen one look at Shang-Chi yet. Yeah. We haven't seen one look at the Eternals yet.
Yeah, but I read that, and I can't help but think anybody who knows anything about Marvel is looking at it and says, who the fuck is Shang-Chi?
Yeah, that was going to be my immediate reaction was, who?
Exactly. I read Marvel comics all through the 80s and a large part of the 90s. I never once saw Shang-Chi in a single comic. Never. So I don't want to hear this whole oh, Shang-Chi's so great. Oh, sorry, you never. Shang-Chi appeals to the same crowd who all claimed they were huge reggae fans in the 90s.
Look, I'll say this much, Rob.
Nobody liked reggae in the 90s.
6 years ago, I didn't know who the Guardians of the Galaxy were.
I knew of the Guardians of the Galaxy, but I wasn't familiar.
Really.
And I was
Rocket Raccoon was the only one I really knew of.
Yeah, I would see Star-Lord on the cover of a couple of Guardians of the Galaxy comics, but that was me flipping to try to get to the Lobo books and everything. So it was like being familiar with all of these characters and all of these different, teams and properties. It's interesting to see who's rising to the top right now, because just like you're talking about, Rob, in the 80s and 90s, it was just like, all right, let's read something entertaining. Let's, see what's going on with all these other publishers, what's up with Image, what's up with Bloodshot, all that stuff. But it was all about just, grabbing a good comic book and having fun.
Yeah. And I mean, go ahead, Rob.
I was about to say the three, and I'm writing mini doc about this. The three biggest sellings titles of the 80s were X-Men, The Amazing Spider-Man. Believe it or not, for a short time, G.I. Joe was a Real American Hero, was one of the best-selling titles of the 80s for a couple of years.
I believe that 100%.
Outsold X-Men and The Amazing Spider-Man on a monthly basis from like 85 to 80.
I got G.I. Joe on my shirt.
It's awesome.
Well, Duke. You got Duke, Leonardo, He-Man, and what's his face from Thundercats.
But the whole thing is, though, like a lot of these characters that they're trotting out now, you're familiar with, but you really don't know anything about it. And I admit, I was one of the people who said, how are you going to make Guardians of the Galaxy a movie? How? You show me how. And I was like, okay, that's how you do it.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, we have not seen anything out of these. I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt that, as far as the lesser properties, they're like, in my opinion, they're about 3 or 4 for 5 or whatever. If you count like Ant-Man, nobody knew who the fuck Ant-Man was really. Doctor Strange, nobody really knew who Doctor Strange was. The Guardians, like I said, and what's one of the other lesser known characters that they've done so far? Captain Marvel would be that would be one of the misses.
Well, Captain Marvel. I
don't mean in a female sense. I mean a miss. Like,
Captain Marvel used to be a lot more interesting character when she was Ms. Marvel and when she was Warbird. I mean, she actually had some depth to her. She was an alcoholic. She had a split personality. That kind of stuff.
I remember Ms. Marvel growing up, and the Ms. Marvel comics. They were on the shelf. They didn't sell that big, but they were there, just like the Guardians of the Galaxy. And there's the rebranding thing too, where you look at the old Star-Lord face with the star on the mask and all that stuff, and how we're seeing him now. And some things just work.
I'm still wondering, why aren't we getting a Nova movie? I mean, really,
Nova Corps would be great.
I mean, the Nova Corps already exists, and we've seen the Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, is there some kind of thing they can't decide between whether to go with Sam Alexander or Richard Rider? I mean, well, you go with Richard Rider. I mean, that's the thing. But
I get it. I mean, I see people in the chat are like, I know. Well, yeah, you guys are also comic book nerds and stuff like that too. So of course you guys know, but I'm talking about general audiences. Like, let's be real. Most general audiences didn't know who the fuck Iron Man was. They thought it was just a fucking Black Sabbath song. They had no idea.
Yeah, and there was an offhand reference in one episode of Seinfeld. I mean, that was about it. So,
well, like I'm saying, and as far as the ones that they did in the early MCU outside of the Hulk, Iron Man was probably the most well-known, of course. But I mean, again, my point is I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. I mean, I've been wooed back with WandaVision now. I the thing is they've never let us down outside of really Captain Marvel and probably Thor 2 and whatever the lower end of the movies. I mean, even still, I mean, their worst movies are still pretty good outside of those two that I just mentioned. So
Boag and $20 Mexican. Disney will not make a movie starring Dick Ryder. Hey, phrasing.
There's a joke for Deadpool.
Yeah. Kevin Street, actually, no, they cannot. Marvel cannot make a ROM Space Knight movie because the rights are owned by Hasbro, and they've been editing ROM out of all those back issues for the compendiums for the trade paperbacks.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, that's when licensing jumps in, and then you start seeing some characters disappear. That's a shame.
The ROM comic went on 6 years longer than the toy.
It did indeed. That actually happened quite a few times with Marvel. I mean, they have some things that became so integrated with their universe, but they were actually only licensed characters, which of course was the case with not just ROM, but the Transformers. Which,
I was going to say the Transformers comics, the old Marvel comics of Transformers were great.
Yeah. Same with Conan. Of course, they got Conan the Barbarian back in 2019, but there were like a good 25 to almost 30 years in between there where Conan wasn't part of the Marvel universe.
One of the quirks of the licensing deal is that Hasbro owns ROM. They own ROM, but Marvel owns Space Knights and the Dire Wraiths. So they keep turning up in different iterations.
Yeah, because they own what they created for the series, yes?
Yeah, that's true, yeah. Actually, one of the first videos I did for my channel was about ROM Space Knight. So, and believe it or not, that still gets comments to even now.
You're such a nerd.
Ain't I? Oh, I'm a nerd, I'm a nerd, I'm a nerd, I'm a nerd.
On that note, I've just seen what some of you guys in the chat are saying. Rob, you're not the only one who wants Thor Frog of Thunder. So does the DCV Titan for $2 Canadian. And we also have, let's see who we have here. Stephen Otten says, I agree with Rob. Resident Alien was a lot of fun. I hope they don't ruin it. Sci-fi is notorious for cancelling shows when they get interesting. And Tiberius Monk says, Thor Ragnarok is not just in my top 5 MCU films, but one of my favorite superhero films in a decade. I have faith in Taika Waititi making this good, referring, of course, to Thor, Love and Thunder.
That's pretty much the way I figure. Is like, if you didn't like, because I know a lot of people didn't like the third Thor film, and if you didn't, chances are you're not going to like this one. But if you loved it, then you might like this one. That's what I'm thinking.
Well, good for me, because I loved it.
Yeah, well, Taika Waititi just has a specific type of humor, where if you've seen his films, then,
well, I mean, he's got a real individual style to what he does, and sometimes it lands and it's really great, and sometimes it doesn't always connect.
Well, the other thing too is he's guilty of sometimes the jokes go too long. Sometimes he beats a joke to death. Like
sometimes,
like in The Mandalorian, the whole thing. Oh, stormtroopers can't hit the broadside of a barn.
Even some of his worst jokes make me laugh. Even though, like the one with the whole, as long as there's a foundation to build upon, and then the thing blows up, and they're like, well, so much of that. Like, even though I chuckled at that, it's like I agree with people when they said that's not the time you make a joke. At the end of Thor Ragnarok, there, like, I mean, there's just
because you're descending into Mel Brooks territory at that point.
Well, not only that, he's not good at social media. He's not good at the whole, like, he's been real good at riling up people with his I'll ruin your mythos in a minute, baby, or I can't wait to see what I do or hate what I do to Star Wars or something like shit like that, he said. And some other tweet. Like, he's doing it on purpose just to troll people.
Yeah, that's just obnoxious stuff.
Yeah, and I get that. It's kind of like, it almost reminds me of like a real life Borat almost. It's weird. I don't know how to put it, but like, yeah. Almost the kind of shit that Sacha Baron Cohen does.
Well, I hate saying it, but it's the mark of someone who's never had their ass kicked. I hate saying that because he doesn't know where because you don't know where your boundaries are.
But it just helps that's just because he's funny, because any bully who was about to beat his ass, he probably made him laugh. Like, I get it. Like, for every 10 jokes he makes, 9 of them land, 1 of them probably don't. I get it. I mean, I liked Thor Ragnarok. I know people who didn't, and I understand that. So, like, it's a fair assessment if you're not, because it was a totally different turn for the series. And I mean, Andre, who's actually Norwegian, loves it. So go figure on that one. So
Yeah, I think it was awesome. I love that movie. It was great fun.
So if
Great
anybody's
fun
going to have a
for-
complaint about Ragnarok, I would think it'd be him. So
and I absolutely adored that movie. Is it like a perfect adaptation of Norse mythology? No, but then neither was anything of the Marvel Thor comics.
no, what I
They
liked
got-
about it,
Yeah, they were always
got
great
enough
fantasy.
right to make it fun. Yeah,
what I liked about it was bringing in Planet Hulk stuff and the Hulk Thor and Bruce Banner.
Angry Lady. Yeah, well, and Bruce Banner, of course. I was
Their whole their whole dynamic was great. Like that's what to me worked for the movie, was having those two together and their just whole kind of the way they interacted and shit. Just it made me laugh. I still laugh every time I think of "Don't kick stuff." You know, like, it just makes me laugh.
You know, I liked a lot of parts of Ragnarok, but Jeff Goldblum is just great in everything.
Oh, he's fucking amazing balls in it too. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it. He's got like the best fucking bit at the end.
Worst part of still for me, the worst part of with the Ragnarok was Tessa Thompson.
Yeah,
Still,
I mean,
her whole character. I'm drunk. Oh, look at me. I'm so drunk. Shut up, will you? We get the point. You're drunk, okay?
I didn't dislike her until she started getting all political. Like it was just kind of the same thing with Brie Larson. Once you start acting ugly, then you start getting ugly. I don't know. Did we get this one from DCV Titan that's on the screen here, Andre, or are we leading up to it yet?
Yeah, we have mentioned that already. We already mentioned that. So yeah, that one was taken.
Yeah, Jeff Goldblum basically just playing Jeff Goldblum. That's right.
Works every time.
We'll just call this a tie, and good war, everybody. However he says it or whatever.
Yeah. And Captain Robert April says, "Fat Thor is how Thor really is in Norse mythology."
That's what it was. Good.
Yes, so I may be the biggest fan of the Fat Thor on the planet. When I saw him, I was like, yes, perfect. Just like that. Especially the super duper Norwegian clothing he was wearing in Avengers Endgame. It's called a lusekofte, and it's like the national Norwegian clothing. So him fat like the real Thor wearing that, I was freaking tastic. So I love that. So I'm not happy about him having lost the weight. I liked fat suit Thor, but that's me.
I still want to see Balder in a Thor movie.
Yeah, that would be something.
I just want a Howard the fucking Duck movie. How hard is that? I mean, we're getting Shang-Chi, we're getting the Eternals, we've got Doctor Strange and Ant-Man. Where's my damn Howard the Duck movie?
Talk about a great character. That would be an awesome detective story procedural movie right there. Get a good Howard the Duck talking trash the entire time.
Yeah, he's the only main character that you really need to worry about any effects-wise, right? And they already got him cast. They already got him designed. I mean, I'm just fine with Scott Green or whatever the hell his name is doing the voice. The guy from Robot Chicken. Is that his name? Seth Green, not Scott Green. Seth Green did just fine. I mean, I don't mind the he looks just like he does in the comics, so I'm fine with that. Just do it.
Yeah, no, that'd be like a Rocket Raccoon standalone movie, guest starring Howard the Duck. How amazing would that be? And bring in like his rabbit girlfriend and everything from that amazing miniseries.
The problem I have with the George Lucas produced Howard the Duck movie is like half of it is Howard the Duck. The other half is like George Lucas fuckery. And it's just like, I mean, it's like he wanted to make it so bad, but yet he didn't quite get Howard, I don't think. I mean, it's a decent enough movie, but it's at the same time, it's just, it deserves to be in that pantheon of, best worst films ever kind of thing.
Yeah, and to me, the tone of Howard in the comics is that kind of gruff Bogart Columbo, just constantly talking smack and getting into trouble. And there's a little bit of that, but then you've got the whole adventure story and the Lords of the universe of the Lords of Darkness coming in from outer space and everything. Tim Robbins carries a lot of that film and it almost turns into a road trip. So I think if it had just been, stuck in a city and he's dealing with some stuff from the comics, whatever the plot might be, it could be good fun. Keep it gritty.
Yeah. Problem is, it's like 3 different movies in one. That's the big problem you have.
Oh yeah. That original, the George Lucas one. Yeah,
it's like an out of fish story for the first part of the movie, and then it's a love story for the middle part, and then all of a sudden it flips and turns into a sci-fi action film for the last part, and you're like, wait, what? Like,
which is some of the most fun stuff: the fish out of water and the sci-fi action at the end, and then it all has a big concert bash 80s hair song to cap it all off.
Which it ends like every freaking DreamWorks movie or
Streets of Fire stuff.
No, I love it for how cheesy it is, don't get me wrong, but Howard is one of those things that if done right, could be as good as Deadpool.
Easily,
kind of thing. So
it could be like Deadpool for the I don't know, Roger Rabbit fans or something. Just throw in a good R-rated script and everyone get a good laugh.
Well, that's something that you don't need to go to that extreme like they did in the original movie. You can make it a little bit more, punny to say this, but down to earth, in that sense. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, it's all it is him coming to earth and living in a world he didn't make. That's what the original whole, tagline of the comic was. So, just that part of the story, like you said, was the more interesting stuff. So anyway, what do we got for super chats otherwise, Andre?
Let us see if we have any more. Silver Nova says, for 10 Australian dollars, best wishes to Love and Thunder. Natalie Portman, however, will require a strength-enhancing serum of some kind on account of her weighing less than Thor's cape. There's evidently many others that feel the same way.
Well, I mean, I was just saying, like, I don't have as much of a problem with believing it because once she gets the power of Thor, she'll have the power of Thor. I mean, I understand where Rob's coming from on the physical aspect of it, but I just have zero interest in the story. I'm more interested now that I know the Guardians are involved. I just hope they're not just in a small cameo.
I hope that's a big part. But we saw that the previous movie ended with Thor joining them. So really, Thor is part of the Guardians of the Galaxy right now.
Well, that's the thing is they were even toying with calling the third Guardians film as Guardians of the Galaxy. Because Thor's supposed to be in that as well. So I don't know.
So I think they're going to have a fairly big presence. We'll see. And then moving on from there, John Apocalypse asks, what has Natalie Portman been in since Thor 2? I'm sure she's been in plenty of stuff, just not high.
The unemployment line? I don't know. No, I'm kidding. No, she did like that Netflix movie last year and some other. She did a couple movies that just didn't do that well.
Here's the thing, that she can do plenty of things without it being on our radar. Like, our radar is mostly like tuned to subculture and it's more like comics book oriented stuff, and she can do plenty things that aren't that. And that's probably what she has been doing without me having checked it.
Like her last few films were like a psychological thriller and an action movie,
and that's perfectly fine.
She made Annihilation. Annihilation.
Yeah, Annihilation was the one.
Yeah. You know what? And I like I always say, you know why that movie bombed? Because nobody is going to believe 4'11", 98-pound Natalie Portman carrying a machine gun into a bad situation is a battle-hardened anything. Okay. Like, oh no, Natalie, look out, a strong breeze is coming. Brace yourself.
Yeah, well, but that doesn't matter, does it? I mean, just look at Charlie's Angels. I mean, and on that note, like, for instance, the Black Widow, Scarlett Johansson, how much fight could she pull up in reality? So that's like where suspension of disbelief comes in. So
but we like Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah.
Well, the difference is, no, Scarlett does have a bit more of a height and build on Natalie. I will give Rob that. Like, Natalie is like 4 foot nothing.
Let me see. Let me look at Scarlett Johansson height and weight.
I mean, she at least looks like she can handle herself, as opposed to Natalie looks like. I mean, Rob isn't wrong. Like, if a strong wind come by, she's going to float away like Mary Poppins.
Yeah, Scarlett Johansson clocks in at 5'3", 126 pounds. Now, 126 pounds for a woman. For 126 pounds for a woman that that height, she's going to be carrying a lot. She's carrying a lot of his
That's
muscle.
all muscle. I was gonna say, I guarantee you that's all muscle.
Yeah.
She-
I mean, that's a fit woman right there.
Yeah, I was going to say, if a performer, an actress, an actor has that athleticism, if they're playing an athletic character, someone that's going to actually be kicking ass and doing some awesome stunts and things like that, or at least giving us the impression that they're doing all of that, sometimes that physicality, is really a factor. And talking about Annihilation, that whole scale of the film is basically the world is ending. We have this giant force bubble that we don't know what it's doing, but it's affecting all of this environment. Let's send in 4 people to see if they can recover basically what was essentially a SEAL team that had gone missing. But let's pick a couple of scientists who aren't field trained for any of this and throw them in there. Why
Kind of
not?
like Armageddon.
Well, the thing is, with Armageddon, you've actually got a cast that's filled to the
You
brim
can
with a
actually
ton of
buy
fun
it.
people.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
you're still, even they bring it up in the movie, you're still like, yeah, I know, but we're gonna
Yeah.
go with this.
they have a specific set of skills that are actually going to be used once they get to a specific point. Like,
No, but
that's,
let's be real. It'd be a hell of a lot
yeah.
easier to teach NASA scientists how to drill a fucking hole than it would be to
teach a bunch of offshore guys
drillers how to be fucking astronauts.
get in space, get on this asteroid and get this done. I love it.
Actually, you know what? Our wrencher Natasha, she pointed out that Natalie Portman is actually the same height as Scarlett Johansson. But you take a look at the build on both of them, where Natalie Portman looks frail, like Scarlett Johansson looks like she could kick your ass.
I'm gonna guess that,
you'd enjoy it too. So.
My guess is Portman's probably a vegetarian too.
Yeah, she's a vegan. She was on the Daily Show years ago, and
it shows.
And she was like, "I could speak French," and and Jon Stewart was just asking her for like a croissant sandwich. She's like, "I don't know what McDonald's is. I'm a vegetarian." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm an idiot here asking you like, have you ever had a croissant sandwich here?" So it turned into a big joke, a big farce. So yeah, she's. But like I said, you take a look at the body types on each of them. Like one is believable and one is not. So I mean. Yeah, like we're not. And for those who are going to say, no, I'm not body shaming, I'm like, it's right there in front of you. Okay.
Well, either way. Next super chat, Andre.
Yes. Then we have Adam Wofford, who asks, "Hey, what about Beta Ray Bill? We haven't seen him in a movie or guest starring. He has a clone of Thor's hammer. He's as powerful as Thor. Isn't he supposed to be in this? I think he is.
I thought I heard some rumors. If not, I'd imagine maybe in the Guardians movie. Because once they get to space, perhaps. I don't know.
I think he's in this one.
If he's not, I wouldn't be surprised if he's not in Guardians 3 is what I'm thinking. I know they had mentioned. I know he's been rumored, so I wouldn't be surprised.
It's not confirmed, but it has been rumors.
That's what I just said.
I think he's going to be in this one. We'll see, but
I'm just not sure. Yeah, it all depends on how they bring him in. Stephen Otten says, I thought Annihilation was fine, but I'm a Garland fanboy. I prefer Ex Machina, or even better yet, Dread.
Yes.
Yeah.
Best comic book movie of all time.
And then we got Ram Bam with 5. That's euro or pounds.
Pounds, British pounds.
How should be the duck version of Philip Marlowe?
Howard should be the duck.
Oh, Howard should be.
Yeah.
Then you just need a scriptwriter and director who understood how to combine noir and comedy. Yeah, I mean, like they already got him cast and everything, but yeah, it would be good if they just could get. It's not like it would be that hard to do. That's my point. Is like it wouldn't cost you $1 billion to do. So
no way. It would be on the lower end, and if it was well written and well executed, it'd be a blast.
Yeah, you could. And if I were you, I'd even avoid doing a lot of the major shit they did in the other movies. So there you go. But anyway, I went a little backwards on the super chats. Where did we leave off there?
We left off. This you can't see on screen, so you're just going to have to listen. The DCV Titan says, Any word on Adam Warlock entering the MCU? He was teased at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy 2, but since the Infinity Stones are gone, he's kind of pointless now. Well, here's the thing, though. They can change him, can't they? They aren't beholden to having him be an integral part of the Infinity Stones.
Well, the stones aren't actually gone. They're there. They just happened to beat Thanos before he got them all, or whatever was what it was, or whatever.
Yes, they're still spread
before
around
he
the
destroyed them,
multiverse.
or whatever. Yeah,
they're like put back into their time, and then he still destroyed them. So
because
they're
that's
gone in the main timeline from where
they're no longer in the main timeline. That's the thing. I think,
Yeah.
as far as I can understand from how the whole thing works, and I know that a lot of people have debated it, but yeah.
Well,
Anyway.
Cap put all the stones.
Yeah,
back.
but see, they're never in this. That's the thing. Like that.
he put them back to first Thanos to wish them away after the events.
Yeah, but he's not there to wish them away, so they're not in the
War.
same timeline. That's the whole point. That's what the Hulk is saying: is you cannot go back in time and come back to the same timeline you came from.
Yeah.
So they created a new timeline, is what happened.
Yeah, for each and every one of them, probably. But yeah.
Well, and I think that's what these shows are going to kind of pick up, and that's where I think the rumor of Chris Evans, quote unquote, coming back is coming from. Is they're going to end up telling us the whole story of the stones and what happened eventually.
And then isn't there a big thing that's supposed to be revealed in Doctor Strange?
The multiverse shit, yeah.
Multiverse of madness and everything, yeah.
Yeah, and I have this weird feeling because like everybody, is just so sure that Black Widow should have come out before and we shouldn't care about her because she's dead. I'm like, I keep telling people, yeah, you have to leave something behind to take the stone, but what happens if you put it back? She may come back, like even if it's an end credit scene.
It's like returning something at Walmart. I mean,
yeah,
so.
I have a feeling that she'll come back because of that. Yeah,
especially if her movie is a success, definitely.
Yeah. They could also just take her from a different timeline. I mean, they did that with Gamora. I mean, the Gamora that there is now is a different Gamora. The Gamora that didn't fall in love with Star-Lord.
But I mean, we don't know in this universe the rules about putting the stone back. We just know what happens if you take it. So that's all I'm saying.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens with Adam Warlock. But again, they are no strangers to.
I think Warlock will be in Guardians 3 because usually they tend to stick with, like, if they set it up in Guardians 2, chances are it'll be something in Guardians 3 because it didn't seem like it was obviously something that was set up for Infinity War, obviously. So
yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Probably it could even be in this one. Who knows? We know very little about the story. It's not outside the realm of possibility that we'll get more Adam Warlock in this one. I wouldn't rule it out. But yeah. The Festman 93 says Fat Steven Seagal versus Fat Thor. Well, I'll take my chances on Fat Thor any day. He's not going to be any weaker.
Black Phoenix says he thinks Darcy lied about her credentials to Sword. I don't know if she so much lied. You just got to look at it this way. She's one of the few people in the world who actually knows about like Thor and all that kind of crap, even pre-snap. So like, I mean, that's probably part of it is she's just kind of an authority on some of this shit.
And she was a scientist already.
Yeah, she was a scientist. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
She was just doing an internship with Jane Foster and what's his name?
The Erik Selvig.
Yes, that guy, Erik Selvig.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
The naked guy.
Yeah. The Swede who's portraying a Norwegian character. So, yeah.
Oh, classic Stellan Skarsgård. Always great.
Yeah. She'll be in like the family and the scientist. So why not? I was very happy to see her in WandaVision, but getting ahead of ourselves.
Yes.
Moving on from there, We Tune to See says for $5. Thank you so much. Check out The Magicians. Feels like they were told to be woke and the writers thought, okay, but let's ridicule the crap out of it. Hilarious. I have never seen The Magicians, so I have no idea what that's a reference to. But
never heard of it. Yeah.
I'm familiar with it, but I've never watched it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, if they do it to the point of ridicule, then yay, writers, I guess. And Maitros sent us 50 Swedish krona and says, regarding Ragnarok, Carl Urban's guy redeems himself more and gets killed, and Tessa Thompson's character was a slaver for the gladiatorial pits and is rewarded. Yeah, go figure, but that's Taika Waititi for you. And Gran Wasu 42 says, for 10 euros, thank you so much, what about a Fritz the Cat remake? Even live action.
Oh boy.
That would be something to be seen in this day and age. Yeah, that would be like the real-life butthole cut of Cats, wouldn't it?
Well, yes and no. Here's the thing: is people misunderstand what Fritz the Cat really. It's kind of like Howard.
Yeah,
the movies are bad representations, kind of what Fritz the Cat is. And I actually like the second film better than I do the first film, to be honest with you.
The 9 Lives of Fritz the Cat.
Yeah, I actually
prefer
that one. Yeah, to be honest with you, and just story wise, it's easier to stomach. But the Bakshi one is much better artistic wise, and they both have their ups and downs. But again, it's if they did a straight up adaptation of, because Crumb's a fucked up individual to begin with. Like, I mean, you oh shit,
yeah, he was a character.
I don't know if it'd fly nowadays. I really don't. I mean, because Bakshi, here's the thing with Bakshi's version, he brought a lot of his sentimentalities to the table. Because if you watch Fritz and you watch a lot of other Bakshi films, you can definitely see the Bakshi, like what he brought to the table and why Crumb was never really a fan of the first film. I don't know how he felt about 9 Lives, to be honest with you. But Jed says 9 Lives is awesome. So maybe I'm not wrong in thinking that's the better of the two. Maybe that one's closer to the comics, and it's been so long since I've read any of the comics and stuff. I mean, I'm well aware of them, and I've seen the films a million times and all that kind of stuff. But and I am a fan, but I'm a fan at like arm's length, if that makes sense. Like of all the Crumb things, Fritz the Cat's the only thing I kind of like, because otherwise his shit's kind of weird and twisted, like in not like a good way. It's kind of just like that off-putting kind of way. I don't know. And he even kind of rescinded later in life. He's kind of like, yeah, I just went a little too far with some shit kind of thing. Not exactly in those words, I think, but I'm paraphrasing. But like, yeah, no, I think if you did it with the right sentimentality, it'd be great. But I just don't know if you could update it nowadays. What do you think, Andrew? I mean, are you real familiar with it at all?
Yeah, I mean, I've casually read a lot of Robert Crumb, just from different collections on the shelf. And as for Fritz, the thing about Bakshi's version is that it's so filled with Bakshi's philosophy, especially when it comes to what people are saying and what they're actually meaning when they're talking about different political subjects and different social subjects. I think, yeah, just rewatching it, interestingly enough, a couple of weeks ago, because it was just on Amazon Video or something, and I figured I'd put it on and revisit it after a few years. It's a film that really focuses on so many reasons why people try to either self-aggrandize or make themselves seem more virtuous than others, and what it really means to fill your head with different forms of education and different cultural aspects of learning about people all around the world and how that applies to how you live your life. Fritz is a character that's entirely focused just on basically getting laid, but everyone around him and in his circles are all really just doing drugs and trying to outdo each other about how really great they all are for understanding the way that the world works, but in the end, it's all meaningless.
I was going to say, remind me if I'm wrong, because it's been years since I've read the comics. Like his basic kind of whole thing with Fritz was kind of like showing the dirty, gritty side of the whole hippie movement, right? It wasn't
exactly.
Yeah, it wasn't
that's what it was.
All about peace and love. It's like a lot of self-indulgent bullshit and some shit like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and Bakshi really took that to another level by sort of refocusing it into being almost a preachy in a way. And I think that was the biggest issue that Crumb had. Was Crumb was more about the physical storytelling instead of the constant discussion. So it's interesting, definitely, but I don't know. I don't know how it would go with an audience right now. I think it might be so controversial and might push so many people's buttons that there may be no way it could even get greenlit unless it was like a deep indie studio that was just going to push it out on VOD.
Exactly. And I mean, I'm trying to remember if the comics were as political as the movies were.
Lesser so, yeah.
I was going to say,
a degree, but not nearly as political.
That's where
as
I
what
was trying to
Bakshi
remember.
brought to it.
I was going to say, I think that was one of Bakshi's things he really brought to the table. I mean, and I know that somebody pointed out in the chat that Crumb even killed him off in the comics to try and prevent another film being made.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, honestly, if you did another one, is the voice actor still alive? I wouldn't mind seeing a third film because, like, the first and second film kind of cover a lot of time. But I wouldn't mind seeing what Fritz did during the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, and maybe him kind of reflecting on how the times have changed over the decades, definitely. But yeah, looking back again, Crumb was really criticized for being essentially comic book smut. And that's a really tough, label to shake when you're trying to present something to a lot of modern audiences right now. Yeah.
And he kind of owned it. And that's what I was kind of saying before was,
he didn't care. Yeah.
I mean,
later,
he's like later on in his life, he was kind of like, yeah, I mean, I did go I can't remember how he exactly put it, but he was like, I don't care so much now about the sex and all that shit. And if I did it again over, I probably wouldn't have been as overt or something along those. Yeah, something along those lines. And it just was kind of like one of those, like, he didn't really necessarily, backtrack on everything, but he was just kind of like, yeah, I would have done it a little differently maybe, but I don't know if he would have been on board with another Fritz because I don't know if anybody really would get it. What do you think, Andre? Have you ever been a fan of Fritz or?
No, I haven't. Not because I've made a decision not to be a fan, but because I'm not familiar enough with it to have an opinion.
They're not
I'm
exactly
aware of the comics
either,
but I've never read them. I'm aware of the movie. I actually own the movie, but I've never seen it. Of course, I'm a very, very big fan of Ralph Bakshi in general. But Fritz actually has escaped me, so I have no strong thoughts on it one way or the other. I don't have sufficient familiarity with it that I can really have an opinion one way or the other.
Honestly, I would suggest also, if you can find it, grabbing 9 Lives of Fritz the Cat. I mean, different animator, but they got the same voice actor. But I feel like that just encapsulates the character a little bit better. It just kind of grabs the whole I could give a fuck attitude of Fritz kind of better, I think. And it's not as political as the first one, I guess.
Yeah, and the first one's really prosaic. I mean, there are these really long monologues from Fritz where he's talking about how all of this self-aggrandizing is really just manipulation of other people and those around you. And it's an interesting perspective and philosophy. And Andre, I highly recommend checking it out. I think it would be something that is not only interesting to hold up a mirror to what was going on at the time in the mid and late 60s, but also even to now in a way.
Oh, I can absolutely believe that. So I look forward to seeing it. I absolutely do.
Yeah, if you can't find 9 Lives, let me know. I do have the DVD, so I'm sure I can.
I'll let you know if I can't find it.
They are very difficult to find. They've only been on DVD once. Like Andrew said, they pop up on Amazon once in a great while, but 9 Lives even less so.
Yeah. I didn't even know there was a second one.
No, and I actually, like I said, I'm noticing people in the chat agree with me because that third act of that first movie is just, it goes way overboard.
It gets very meta, a lot of road trip stuff, and then a very full circle kind of narrative. But at the same time, there's so much to process with all of the different lengthy monologues that happen.
Nine Lives is just a funner watch. I mean, I don't know if that's
Yeah.
a word, but it's a lot easier to stomach, and it's not as preachy like you're saying. And the music's actually, I think, a little better too. But sadly, that one never got a soundtrack. I got the soundtrack for the first one, but the second one never got a soundtrack. Go figure. But
Yeah. Underground cult classics for sure.
And then we have Willie Woodward, who says for $5, Tim Robbins was the worst part in Howard the Duck. Loved it as a kid. Loved it as an adult. Really good interpretation of the character. Fight me.
It's not bad. Like I was saying before, it's like half there, but maybe if they would have done a PG-13, and I think Andrew's right. Like Howard just is too. They didn't grasp something about the character right.
He seems a little softened. I mean, there are hints here and there. You know, you've got the adult magazine, you've got the cigar, you've got little traits that are from the comic, but they definitely made him more presentable to the family audience in a weird way.
Absolutely. Like that's the thing I was going to say earlier. They took away his edge a little bit. And the funny thing is I believe George Lucas got the rights to that before he did Star Wars. Like he wanted to do Howard like a long time ago, which is weird. I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's anything near his domain. That's the weird thing. Like, I mean, I could see Taika Waititi or James Gunn or somebody like that doing a Howard the Duck movie, but I don't know.
Yeah, the director of American Graffiti and THX 1138 jumping to Howard the Duck would be a big stretch.
I mean, he didn't direct
his wheelhouse.
But still, like, yeah, it was just kind of like, okay.
There you go. And then here we have a good question from Rambam3000, who says for £5.
You got to change your name to Ram Bam Jammeram now.
Yeah. No, actually, he already said Howard should be the duck version of Philip Marlowe. So yeah, you got your money's worth there because your name is so awesome.
Still relevant. There you go.
No, the next one was Tiberius Monk, who said for $5. Thank you so much. Question for the panel. Name a superhero/comic book film you thought would be terrible, but you found to be surprisingly great. My answer is Dredd. And yeah, that's a great movie, but I always knew that was going to be great. But that's me. Andrew, what superhero or other comic book movie did you expect to be awful, but found it to be awesome?
So I've always been a fan of Swamp Thing. I've been a fan of Swamp Thing since, reading the comics as a kid, and then the whole 90s changeover and having the old cartoon show and the toys and everything. And the first movie with Adrienne Barbeau and Ray Wise is pretty good. But surprisingly enough, I'm actually a really big fan of The Return of Swamp Thing, directed by Jim Wynorski. I actually love that movie. It's schlocky. It's got all of the traits of a bad 80s cable TV movie, but I'm a fan of that one. And I thought it was going to be awful after the first one, but it's actually a pretty good time. And it's got some great mutations and some real fun moments towards the end.
Rob? You still there, Rob?
Yeah, I'm still here. Believe it or not, Captain America: The First Avenger.
Nice.
Because I'd seen the previous iterations of Captain America. The 70s one with Reb Brown. I believe it was.
Yeah, it was Reb Brown. Yep.
Yeah, and I remember the 90s version.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, oh God. And I was just like, you know what? You tried twice before. I was convinced it doesn't work. It doesn't work. But then you get the right director, Joe Johnston, who understands the material. He understands how to convincingly portray a period piece. And I was like, and Tom, what do we always say? It is probably the most underappreciated of Marvel, of the MCU. And I have been, and what do I always keep saying? please, I really wish Joe Johnston would have got a crack at making one of these Star Wars movies. I really do.
Dude, it's never gonna happen. Like
I know it's never gonna happen, but
I've got a list that's growing longer and longer of people who worked on Star Wars and the prequels that still work in the industry in some aspect that are nowhere near Lucasfilm. Like the list is growing every day, and Joe Johnston's near the top. The top of the list, of course, is Ben Burtt. I mean, where the fuck is the voice of R2-D2?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just ridiculous. The guy who made all the sounds, who pretty much edited the prequels. I mean, it's just, yeah, he's out there doing like piddly shit. Why is he not making a Star Wars movie? That should have been his graduation present for 50 years of working with George Lucas, is giving him a Star Wars movie.
Oh, that would have been fantastic, especially for R2. Yeah,
I mean,
I think we would have loved that, to see him get his due.
Ben Burtt has been, he made the sound effects for the lightsaber. He was there working on the movie earlier than almost anybody else. He did the sound effect of all the ships. He did the sound effect of all the monsters. He did the sound effect of all the laser beams. Everything that we know now from Star Wars, he did. And then, like I said, later on, he got, involved in editing and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I think he even did some directing later on of his own, but
I love his old videos where you get to see him with like the metal pylons and all that stuff, figuring out how to do. I mean, he was, revolutionary for sound effects and Foley and creating those sounds that just became so used throughout the whole era. I mean, everyone was borrowing that stuff.
And I'm not even being facetious when I'm saying he's the voice of R2-D2 because it's like computer sounds. No, like there's times when it does like the wow and stuff like that. That's him.
Yeah.
Like that's him. Yeah.
Indeed. Tom, how about yourself?
God. I'm trying to think. How about you, Andre?
Yeah. Well, usually it's the reverse that is the case. Namely, it's something that I really want to be good and I hope it to be good. And in best case, it is, like Guardians of the Galaxy and Dread. Or in other cases, it really, really isn't. But things that I expected to be awful, that somehow turned out to be good anyway, that is a superhero or comic book movie. The only one that springs to mind is the Billy Zane Phantom movie. And the reason for that is that when I first saw it in, I believe, 1997, because that was a movie that went straight to VHS in Norway. Incredibly, because the Phantom is popular here. And I saw the movie. I was so excited because I was such a big fan of the Phantom comics. Now, these would have been the Egmont Phantom comics of the 90s, and these were dark and gritty political thrillers. And then was like this Indiana Jones wannabe thing set in the 1930s. And I was like, what the hell is this? Like, this just did not compute to me at all. And then many, many years later, in like 2014, 2015, thereabouts, then I actually read the original comics on which that movie was based. Because by that time, those comics, the original ones from the 30s that the movie adapted, then they were available. Whereas the comics that I had grown up reading, that I read like bi-weekly when they came out, they're gone today. They're nowhere to be found unless you track up those back issues. So now I see what they were doing in that movie. Now I recognize how ahead of its time that movie really was. So it's not just that I saw the movie, expected it to be awful, and it was great. I thought it was awful, and then I did a 180, in my opinion, on it. And that's only happened on that one. So the Phantom is my answer. Tom, have you had the time to think in the meantime?
I guess I'm gonna have to go with probably Kick-Ass, but I mean, I kind of knew that was what that was. No, that's a bad answer. Like, that's the problem, is most of the movies that I mean, most comic book movies, I've gotten out of them what I've expected to, if that makes sense. I'm trying to think of one that maybe the one that probably surprised me the most and I didn't expect it. The two that I can think of, I guess, would be Batman Begins, because I didn't pay enough attention to it at the time. I was one of those who was so turned off by Batman and Robin that I didn't care. That when it came out, I just kind of wasn't. I thought it was just a prequel to the other Batman movies. I really was just totally like, whatever.
Many people thought that. You'd be
Yeah.
surprised at how many thought that was a prequel to the Burton movie.
And then I found out it wasn't. And I was not willing to. This is one of the few times I'll admit it, and it's been long enough now, I'm sure I'll say it, that I was not willing to give them my money. So I actually downloaded it first. And I couldn't barely see it, but I'm like, all right, I can see this is something different. And then I went and saw it in the theater, and I was impressed. And then Dark Knight ended up becoming probably my favorite Batman movie of all time after that. But the other one I was just thinking of, First Class. Because again, like after
X-Men striking out after Last Stand.
Yeah, I just was like, and then like, they're starting over already. I was just like, no, I don't care. And then I saw it and I was really impressed by it. Yeah, those are probably the two that I can think of offhand.
I'm going to say real quick a couple of honorable mentions since you mentioned Batman Begins. Andre, while you were talking about The Phantom, it reminded me of a couple of films that came out around that era. And we just had a great conversation about one. These are just two shout outs for The Rocketeer and Darkman. Those are superhero films that I absolutely love. And I think going into those, nobody really knew what to expect from either. And they both turned out great.
Yeah. Indeed. Especially Darkman, which is the Shadow without being the Shadow.
Yeah, because Sam Raimi wanted to adapt the Shadow, and he just got put in a position where the licensing wasn't there, so he took it upon himself to create this character, and it was great.
Yeah, indeed. Absolutely.
I mean, if we're talking about like superhero type movies, I will say, and I know somebody's going to throw shit at me, and I can't even believe I'm saying this myself, but the RoboCop remake wasn't as bad as I expected it to be. I mean, it wasn't good, but when it was said and done, I was like, okay, it wasn't as horrible as I thought it was going to be, if that makes sense.
Could have been much worse.
I mean, I guess I had to give it credit for kind of doing a twist on the whole, because the original film was, RoboCop gaining back his humanity. In this film, he had his humanity, and then they took it away from him. And then it was about him getting it, kind of like it was a little bit of a reversal twist, and then they made the wife a bigger part of the story, which those two things alone I felt were different enough to warrant it, but it wasn't still a good remake at the same time. So, yeah.
And in the comments, I see some good suggestions there as well. Tino Slant says, Wonder Woman completely surprised me, honestly. So yeah, there you go. And Stephen Otten says, they filmed the original Swamp Thing not far from where I live. I even met the kid who co-starred in the movie. So yeah,
that's
very cool. Yeah, there you go. And Adam Wofford says, for a whopping $50. Thank you so much. That's going to keep the light on for a while. And he says, hey, Andre, I'm working on a sci-fi story where Ragnarok has happened, but 3 chosen champions are racing to find Thor's hammer. But each one finds that there are 3 hammers. Each champion is of a different race, with each their own take on Norse mythology. Oh, very cool. I look forward to seeing more of it as you complete it. So that should be cool. And Geno X 1987 says, for $5 Canadian, I don't know if you know of the Marvel Cancerverse storyline, but what if they revived movie Thanos to be the hero to save the universe from that? I've never heard of it. That's me. Are you guys familiar with the Cancerverse storyline?
I don't know that part.
No.
I know the whole thing kind of with the Jane getting the power of Thor has something to do with cancer, but I don't know if it's
she has cancer. She has cancer, and her radiation and her chemotherapy treatments get inhibited by her using the hammer.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, that's
Dan Comics brought up some breaking news. Dustin Diamond did pass away.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah, at the age of 44 of lung cancer. So,
no. Speaking of,
yeah.
well, rest in peace.
Yeah, it was a weird segue, but yeah. No, I kind of agree with where the comment go here. Joe, I agree with you. RoboCop was not a RoboCop, but it was a better than I thought it would be. Yeah, it was not really RoboCop, but it was kind of like a RoboCop-esque kind of movie. Kind of
the
thing.
best RoboCop remake remains our RoboCop remake. For those that don't know what I'm talking about, just search for our RoboCop remake and thank us later.
Oh, it's so much fun, especially when you get to the one of the most famous scenes from the Our RoboCop remake, where it's the assault in the alleyway, and how that pans out and goes completely off the wall.
You know, I just wish that someone would like take a Blu-ray version of the movie and then replace that one scene and leak it online for future generations to have that scene, because it would fit seamlessly into the movie. That's the beauty. I mean, they even used the original audio.
That's one of the few shirts I don't have. Is the one that says, "Remember that time when RoboCop shot the guy in the dick?" That's one of my favorite shirts I've ever seen that I don't own. We did get some other breaking news here real quick before we jump back into super chats, because this is something that we'll definitely probably be talking a little bit more upon later on. But I think we may have another candidate besides Michelle Redjwan to take over for Kathleen Kennedy. A new executive vice president to Lucasfilm has been named. Momita Sengupta, if I'm saying it correctly, has just been named the new executive vice president, according to Deadline. What does that mean? According to this, it says she will have basically the most influential job next to Kathleen Kennedy. She will oversee all aspects of production on all Lucasfilm future projects. So she'll monitor everything from pre-production and project finance to editing, and final application of special effects and post-production. Basically, it sounds like
that sounds like
Kennedy's job. Yeah,
exactly. That sounds like Kathleen Kennedy's job.
And that's why I brought this up. Is I feel like that. Michelle Redjwan failed, because let's be clear. Like, I'm sick of having this argument with people, and not to go down this road too far, but whether or not there's a Cold War going on at Lucasfilm, I think it's fairly obvious that Kathleen Kennedy is either out of the loop, or she just isn't doing her job, because she didn't know going all the way back to, she didn't know about Carrie Fisher being in Rise of Skywalker. She was so oblivious to the fact that The Mandalorian was too much like Obi-Wan until after The Mandalorian was done aired.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just two things on top of a dozen other things I'm sure we could come up with here, just sitting here talking. Like,
no source material.
Yeah, the 500-page no source. And then somebody's trying to say, "Oh, she just meant Rise of Skywalker." Well, there's books that they stole shit from straight out of for Rise of Skywalker, so I don't know what the hell that means. Mm-hmm. Either way, the compliment is still stupid. So yeah, there's too many things about this anymore that I'm getting to the point where I feel like this may be the person who's going to take over.
Well, I mean, just taking a look, a couple paragraphs down. Previously, Sengupta served as executive vice president at Viacom. Do you know what a mess Viacom is?
Oh, Lord.
Wow.
Good luck, lady. You're going to need it.
Oh, Lord. Well, I'm willing to put money on it that this is the lady that takes over.
Yeah. Well, look, she fulfills all the. I hate saying this. She fulfills all the diversity requirements.
Perfectly. This lines up perfectly with her contract supposedly being over. You know that? And let's be real. Even if her contract was up, she's definitely going to be there long enough to get her, replacement, into the job. And like we've said, she's on board no matter what until Indiana Jones is done. Period. Yeah.
Well, I was trying to say though, like, look, she's got all the diversity requirements. She's a woman, quote unquote, woman of color, and so she's replacing pretty much. They're replacing. It's like raising the stakes. I'll see you, Kathleen Kennedy, and I'll raise you, a Momita Sengupta.
Well, I thought it was going to be Redjwan, but I'm having a feeling no, especially after the Mandalorian hit.
But like, really, I mean, Viacom's such a mess until fairly recently. I mean, really, this is just failing upward again, failing upward. Now, when did she work at Viacom? When was she? Let me take a look.
You'll have to, like I said, we got to really kind of, I don't want to get too much into this because, yeah, we really like to do our homework on these kind of things before we comment too much. But
yeah, exactly. I
that was
wanted
some breaking news, though. I just thought I'd bring to our attention. And yeah.
Well, I'm pulling up her LinkedIn page, security verification.
Get familiar, Rob, because I have a feeling we'll be doing a video about this lady.
Yeah, I can imagine there are going to be some videos coming for those.
Yeah, feel free to get started on that.
Absolutely.
We're gonna go through a couple of more super chats before we get to the most current one. Yeah. Sent us a diamond super sticker, so thanks for that. And El Pancres sent us a devil face super sticker, so thanks for that. Then we have Willie Woodward, who gives us an update on the Beta Ray Bill situation. He says Waititi said in 2020 he was trying to get Beta Ray, but he was contending with Gunn to debut him. Well, there we go. Then maybe he won't be there after all.
That's where I was saying I thought I had heard something before about him not coming in until Guardians 3.
Yeah. That,
oh my God, I'm looking at her IMDb page. Well, she worked as recently for Viacom as 2016. America's Best Dance Crew, Pedro, Parental Control, Fighting Temptations, Martin Lawrence Live. She worked on something called Bully Beatdown, Paris Hilton's My New BFF.
Would be funny as shit. Oh, I was gonna say, would be funny as shit is if she's got a bunch of J.J. Abrams connections. But anyway,
A Shot at Love with Tila Tequila. Yeah,
basically, she was working on the things that basically sunk Viacom.
Yeah, obviously, this is the person you want to run Lucasfilm.
Well, why else would she be hired? Crickets.
Well, I don't want to get too
Nobody
much
wants
into
to say
that, because
nobody wants this job. That's why.
No,
before we can properly research it, I want to abstain from commenting too much on that.
You can abstain from commenting. I'll comment away. Lucasfilm is fucked.
We knew that.
Yeah, that we knew. Tiberius Monks has a good question. Which film or film series should get the Cobra Kai treatment? I say Nightmare on Elm Street. Also, RoboCop remake is better than the Total Recall remake.
Yeah, that's like saying that hamburger is better than vomit, though. I
feel like a burger now.
Yeah, right. Nightmare on Elm Street. I still feel like Robert Englund's got at least 2 or 3 movies left in him. And with special effects nowadays, they can get away with doing a lot less extensive shit with him in his age. And with the way the Halloween reboot went, they're stupid not to have already got working on this. I don't know how many times I got to say it, that Halloween 2018 made more money than the entire franchise, including the Rob Zombie remakes, put together. I can't believe Hollywood hasn't just started chucking out another Nightmare on Elm Street with Robert Englund, another Friday the 13th, which the rights are actually in a really fucked up place right now. And I was thinking if we had time, we're going to talk about that, but it doesn't look like we are. But yeah, no, I think Nightmare on Elm Street would be great to bring back Robert Englund. RoboCop, it's funny that you brought that up in this, though, because we almost got that with RoboCop with the Blomkamp version, right, Andre?
Yeah, we did. So it's still a crying shame that didn't happen. And to answer my version, there are so many things that would have benefited from the Cobra Kai treatment.
And basically anything.
RoboCop being very, very high up on that list for me. But Andrew, let's hear from you. I mean, what do you feel about Cobra Kai in general, and what else, which other 80s properties, so this is right up your alley, should get the Cobra Kai treatment?
Oh, man, I'd love to see, like we're talking about Nightmare on Elm Street, of course, with Robert coming back as Freddy. But also, like you mentioned, I would love to see Friday the 13th get all of this stuff with the licensing and the legalities settled and get Kane back in the mask. I think that would be fantastic. Cobra Kai has done such great stuff for just revitalizing everything that the Karate Kid was. And those are definitely up there for picks from me. And I don't know, maybe even Night of the Demons. I've always got a soft spot for that series, so I think that could be good fun if they went somewhere with that.
Yeah, Cobra Kai is my newest obsession. No, but here's the thing, like, the Friday the 13th franchise, man, what a fucking mess.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard the latest, but Sean,
since we're talking through it, take us through it now.
Well, the short version, because it's so fucking convoluted, guys. It would take me literally probably 10 minutes just to explain it all.
Okay,
but the most recent events, Sean Cunningham is now suing Warner Brothers for loss of I don't remember how to exactly put it, but due to all the lawsuit bullshit that's gone on over the past few years, I'm sure movies that were meant to get off the ground and other projects that were meant to get off the ground didn't, and they probably could have, because the lawsuit that initially kicked this whole thing off to begin with has less to do with the adult Jason than anything. Like, as far as I know, he's free and clear. So I don't know everything about this yet, but like, that's the thing, is I wanted to kind of get into it a little bit with Andrew and see what he knew about it too, because I know more about like the back end of this, and I don't know the total thing what Sean's up to now, but I'm assuming that's what his gripe is they could have been making Jason movies for the last few years, no problem. Because as far as I know, Jason himself is just fine. That's not a problem. I'm trying to think of the guy's name. Victor Miller, the original writer on Friday the 13th, won his case a couple of years back. He went and invoked the deal that we've talked about many a time on here, where James Cameron got the Terminator rights back, and many other creators go to try and get their rights back after 35 years. I think it is 30 or 35 years. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rob. And because he basically came up with a lot of the concepts in that original Friday the 13th script, he won the rights to Mrs. Voorhees, Young Jason, the original story. I don't think he got the Friday the 13th name, though, but he got all those other aspects. So, like, as far as I know, that might be what this lawsuit's about, but I'd like to get some more info on it myself, because I didn't really beef up on it before.
I'm always happy to chime in, and if there's ever an opportunity to sit down and go over all that stuff, that would make for a great conversation. It really does affect the entire series. But yeah, basically what you're saying is right. It really comes down to the original lore, all the campfire tale stuff about the young Jason drowning and Jason's mom, and it really does shift the entire basis that the whole series is constructed from. But with Sean Cunningham basically going to bat for either unpaid residuals or whatever it is, that's something that, is we're all hoping can get resolved so we can see more Jason movies.
Yeah, because I've said this many times over. I don't know how hard it is. It's not hard. And I don't buy the excuse, because Paramount could have made one for 5 years and they didn't.
Yeah.
Their excuse was that what was that movie that came out, Andre? The horror movie that bombed
was it
The Rings?
The Ring, yeah, Rings. That was
Rings.
The one. Rings.
Yeah,
Rings.
Revitalization of the Ring property, yeah.
Yeah, they claimed that because that failed, they didn't want to do Friday the 13th. I'm like, what does one have to do with the other? And
absolutely nothing.
Yeah, and secondly, you can make a Friday the 13th movie for $10.
Yeah.
Like, all you need is a couple of half-naked teenagers, a forest, and a guy in a hockey mask. Literally, that's all you fucking need.
And maybe a lake and a dock and, a couple of eyeballs on strings. That's
you need some popsicle sticks, some fake blood, some glue.
As they said back in the 80s, the most
Halloween
expensive
machete.
thing you have to pay for is the makeup effects.
Yeah, and honestly, at this point, the most expensive thing to get back would be probably Kane Hodder. Let's be real. And that's what the fans
he's
would
ready.
want.
He's ready to get back behind the mask. He's ready for another one. I love in Search of Darkness Part 2, in our retrospective on his career, he talks about it and says, I still got some killing left in me.
Oh, I think so. Well, and that's the thing. Like, I mean, we brought up many, many times, you know, the whole thing with Freddy versus Jason was we couldn't care less about the story so much. We just wanted to see Kane Hodder's Jason versus Robert Englund's Freddy. That's what we wanted to see.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, that's what happened there is such a crime, and Kane Hodder is objectively the definitive Jason. I will give you the proof for this. The proof for this is, at least my subjective proof, is that I rewatched those movies maybe once a decade or something. And the last time I rewatched them, then I saw them with my wife. And she saw them for the first time. She had never seen them before. She knew nothing about them at all. I mean, Jason Voorhees, this was completely alien to her. So we saw them all in order. And then we got to the first one with Kane Hodder, which would be the 7th one. Now, that wasn't the coolest movie, but that's the time when she basically stopped and said, that's the real Jason Voorhees. Like, now they got it. Took many movies, but that's the real guy. And she had no idea about any Kane Hodder, anything like that. She just saw the performance that with him, it came to life, or the character came to life in a way that had never happened before.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier with actors and performers who can embody that kind of physicality when they have to do these stunts, when they have to kick ass. That's something that Kane actually really brings to the character of Jason, because you see the way he performs in that role and he just sells it. He is 100% Jason Voorhees, and he's got the body for it and he's got the grit for it, because he falls through stairs, he does firewalks, he gets crushed by buildings, and he just keeps going. Just an unstoppable force of nature, and he's awesome in it.
Yeah. And he's actually played both Freddy and Jason.
That's right.
Because if you don't know, in the end of Jason Goes to Hell, it's his hand pulling down the mask.
The glove. Yeah.
They stole the glove real quick. Yeah. From I think it was Freddy versus Jason. Oh, no, they had Freddy's Dead was the last movie they made. They stole it from the prop department or whatever it was.
Yeah, and how they snubbed him of Freddy versus Jason. That will forever be a taint against that movie. And I mean, I don't mean a bad word about the stuntman who replaced him. I forgot his name right now.
Jason Kitzinger or something like that, or Eric Kitzinger, or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, it's not his fault. He got the job and he did the best thing that he could do. But my God, how awful was he?
What's sad is he's actually one of Kane's stuntmen.
Yeah.
Because
he was one of his guys. You know, Kane was the head of an entire stunt team and in charge of safety, and basically he trained his replacement, and it was completely against what the fans wanted from, you know, what they decided to do, everything behind the scenes at New Line, the whole direction. It's always going to be a black mark against the
and no one is able to say who's responsible.
Oh, actually,
everyone's Bob shifting blames back and forth and pointing fingers back and forth.
Bob said it was the director's choice.
Yeah,
I'm going to go with that.
I'm inclined to believe that.
Yeah,
because I don't think Bob cared enough. Fingers. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. And that was a mistake on him. He should have recognized that, actually, no, it needs to be this guy. And I think they had the wrong director on that movie in any event.
Oh, yes. Ronnie Yu was not the right choice. He was fine for Chucky, but that's because Chucky needed something, you know, to kind of give it a revival. And that was right for that. But Freddy versus Jason didn't need that.
Yeah,
go ahead. Sorry.
Neither of those icons needed the blast of energy that, you know, Chucky got in Bride of Chucky. I mean, everyone just wanted a good Freddy movie and a good Jason movie. And fans, you know, someone with the focus and direction to, you know, keep it reeled in would have been really good.
No, there's a list of names that would have been better for that movie. They actually were up for that movie, and that was one of those movies where just about everybody had done a version of it, a script of it. But like that would have been a perfect start for like somebody like James Gunn or something like
And
that.
it's a shame because the script was pretty good. I don't have any problems with the script. It's just the direction. It's just the direction that kind of let it down.
It's definitely the best of the scripts that are out there that I've read, because
That's what I
all
mean.
the other ones, they revolve around the Fred heads and the stupid idea of taking their friend's heart and putting it in Jason, and
yeah, it's insane stuff. That's what I mean.
You got a scene where Jason's in the fucking drive-through with the kids, and it's
where scripts are concerned, we dodged a bullet. Just leave it at that. We got the best script we could possibly get, but we didn't get the best director. And everything went wrong there.
Then there was even a version of it where Freddy was the one who killed Jason as a kid because Jason caught him molesting somebody or something like that, so he drowned him.
I thought at some point he was even molesting Jason himself.
There was that version, I believe, too. Like there was so like I said, everybody did a take on it, and most of the takes were that Fred head version, and I hate that version. It's the Fred heads were a cult, and what sucks is Freddy versus Jason would have been a perfect sequel to the Peter Jackson Nightmare on Elm Street movie we never got. And I would love to do a video about that someday. It was called The Dream Lover. And it was about, if I remember right, it picked up X amount of years after 5, because I believe Alice and Jacob were in the story. But it was a new character, was kind of the main character. And it was this kid who... it was these kids kind of figured out that Freddy lost all his power because once they're not afraid of him anymore. So these kids would literally like dope themselves up and so they could go in and beat the shit out of Freddy because it was fun. And then this one like twisted kid ends up giving him his power back somehow. I forgot how it all worked out, but I'd love to find the treatment for that. Because
what was that? Jacob grows up to be a teenage Elm Street kid years after.
It could have even been Jacob. I can't. Now I'm trying to remember. Gosh, it's been so long, but yeah, I gotta dig that up again. There's a whole like, but that Peter Jackson was gonna make, and then Freddy's Dead came along and killed it. So yeah,
yep, stuff that could have been. I just think about how awesome it would still be to see Kane versus Robert Englund. We can always hope.
Yeah, that would be something. But then they better get their act back together. So yeah. But yeah, we started with the Cobra Kai treatment.
Holy shit!
Anything else that should be getting the Cobra Kai
everything
treatment?
And anything that can.
I was going to say even Robot Jocks. I'd love to see expanded into a Cobra Kai type series. Could be good fun there.
Actually, Jed, if you do have that, seriously, yeah, email that to me. That'd be great. I think you got my Twitter, so just DM me or whatever for sure. Save me the trouble. I appreciate it.
Yeah, there you go. And then we had another reminder from Mills, who says, breaking news, Dustin Diamond just died.
Yeah.
And yeah, we brought that up earlier. I did not even know that he had stage 4 lung cancer, or even stage 1 for that matter.
I think it just came out last week. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I just known he had gotten into a lot of trouble, and yeah, he'd had a pretty rough last few years.
Like that. Yeah. See. Yeah, I don't think he had a pretty rough. Actually, I think that's a pretty rough last few decades. Is probably the more accurate description. But yeah. So yeah, that is a shame. But yeah, such is life. And with that, Tom, did we have anything else to take on? Because then I do believe we are caught up with Super Chats.
No, I think we covered pretty much everything we had. Like I said, there wasn't really much today other than the initial stories. But Friday, Andrew, there's a special going on for Into Darkness. Now, I got the trailer here. We can show that real quick. If not, you can talk about it beforehand, which is up to you.
Yeah, well, I'll just preface it real quick. In Search of Darkness Part 2 is the second film in our series of retrospective documentaries on 80s horror, and we're making it available to order. starting Friday. So the trailer speaks for itself.
All right, let's give it a look.
They're back!
In Search of Darkness Part 2. I'm in this one. The 80s was the splatter decade. That was my decade.
There was something really dark and sexy and strange.
Crazy stuff.
It's like a roller coaster ride.
People love this stuff.
There really was a shift of a whole new generation of monster makers.
That was so clever and creative.
We were rock stars in the 80s.
Tom Savini came to us and said, I want to cut somebody's head off. I was called the Sultan of Splatter, the Wizard of Gore.
I think it's one of the finest ways of murdering someone.
How could you let me watch that?
It was something that your parents hated.
That was one of the attractions of it.
It is just a shredder.
The essence of sex and violence.
It never ceases to amaze me.
I just couldn't get enough.
I remember having to stop it because it was getting so rattled. That's an image that I'll never forget.
Gives me chills thinking about it.
I love those Italian movies. They're just crazy.
The Italians just went there immediately. Just went boom.
Video nasties were a good thing for me.
A fake snuff film phase. Really?
Not very PC, is it?
Liquidate the Nazarene.
And I just remember thinking,
Hello.
this is fucking weird.
It was all about trying to understand the world around us, and the world around us was extremely hostile.
It's full of things that want to bite you and kill you and eat you. And that's just the humans.
Revenge of the Nerds on steroids.
You control a murderer.
It's more fun to be the bad guy.
Freddy bored into his subconscious and was maybe opening the closet door. And when people go, hey, what's it like to be in the gayest horror movie ever made? I go, it was fucking awesome.
I'd been bullied. I'd been an outcast.
I think that's really one of the first times that you saw what goth was all about.
All right. Talking turkey.
It's not just a one-note genre.
It's funny as hell.
I started growing hair.
It just all meshes together so perfectly.
Like horror of the absurd.
That's a funny moment, but it's scary as hell.
That is kind of what resonates with fans.
Hey, kids. Welcome to prime time.
Making the film was so interesting technically.
When he started to turn into a zombie, he had me on the floor.
Just remember, I gave him life.
You are all my children now.
Halloween, Silver Shamrock.
All right. So Friday, you'll be doing the flash sale, correct?
That's right. Starting Friday the 5th, we are going to be making the flash sale available for 10 days. So up until midnight on Valentine's Day, you have the opportunity to buy the bundle that we only had available up until Halloween last year. And the bundle includes the documentary, just like you saw, In Search of Darkness Part 2, the full 4.5-hour length epic sequel to In Search of Darkness Part 1. You can get the Blu-ray of that. You can get the digital copy of In Search of Darkness 1. You can get the soundtracks, the access to our Discord and our community where we do weekly watch parties. And it's a great opportunity to be able to get this disc again that we only made available beforehand, and also the awesome 3 posters that we put together for the release. So we just wanted to give what everyone who said, "Oh no, I missed it last time," the next opportunity.
There you go. So that's your chance. And I got to tell you, as far as the community goes, the watch parties, we've partaken in a few of those, and we've gotten to talk to people like Edward Kyoto of the Kyoto Brothers, and even Brad Dourif.
Yes.
For crying out loud. So I mean, like, there is so many great guests that you guys get for all these. And I mean, the thing is like, I'm always bugging you about them because I love them, because I just love to see who you get and whatever the next watch party is going to be, because I love talking about these movies. And that's what these watch parties are, is real great, because you get to talk to somebody who's involved with it, and then you sit down with us and you watch the whole movie, and we talk about trivia and all kinds of fun stuff. And you even got, of course, In Search of Tomorrow, which is the sci-fi documentary. And didn't you say you had a few things that you were going to talk about with that coming up here too?
Yeah, well, right now for In Search of Tomorrow, we are in production on that. We've got some great news that's going to be coming soon throughout the year. Something really cool that we've kind of talked a little bit about today has been RoboCop. And we just broke the news that we have Peter Weller in Search of Tomorrow to talk about RoboCop, to talk about Leviathan, and to give us some insights on Buckaroo Banzai and some of his other favorite 80s sci-fi
watched
movies.
RoboCop again yesterday, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, his interview is fantastic. We filmed that. We have that in the can. It's in the edit with the rest of the whole 80s sci-fi contributor list that we have on IMDb right now, which is still growing because we're adding some amazing names to the list. And it's something that I'm really excited for everyone to see when we have the trailer ready, when we have all the news to break closer to summer. And it's one that we're putting out this year, which is going to be a lot of fun. So along with 80s horror, we're covering 80s sci-fi, and we're making the best documentaries that have ever been made about these genres in the most expansive, retrospective, celebratory way we can with these 4.5-hour mega docs.
So you hear that, Rob? It's not just horror. So you might actually be interested in some of the sci-fi stuff, at least.
All right, well.
Yeah, Rob's not a horror fan, but he does like sci-fi. So
yeah.
Well, if you're into anything 80s sci-fi, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's Star Trek to Star Wars to Space Hunter. You know, we're getting there.
Oh, he'll be fine with that stuff. You named most of his favorites.
I keep asking myself, how many times can some lumbering madman with an axe just butcher kids at a party? Hey, we're out of beer.
Several.
I'll go get some. I think it's in the basement.
As long as teenagers are stupid, Rob.
Yeah.
As long as everyone's still going out to the cabin in the woods and getting into trouble.
I wonder what happened to Fred. I better go find out.
Again, as long as teenagers are stupid, Rob, there will always be horror films.
Yeah, and that's what our whole thing is we're not only looking at the mainstream favorites from 80s horror, like we covered in the first In Search of Darkness, and In Search of Darkness 2, we go into deeper cuts. We take a look at international. We've got some amazing interviews with like Gioretta, for example, who did work with Lucio Fulci and Lamberto Bava and Dario Argento. And we also have Shinya Tsukamoto, who did the incredible Tetsuo the Iron Man in 1989 in Japan. We've got just this expanded view of some of the favorite 80s horror films that showed up on the video store aisles that not everyone might have seen. And the list of interviews, like you just saw in the trailer, Tom Savini, Linnea Quigley, of course, the great Kane Hodder and Robert Englund and so many others. It's really cool that we can bring that to everyone.
Yeah, and you might see a familiar name in the credits buried way deep in there. Just saying.
That's right. And of course, we're going to be spreading the word as soon as we get you guys back on our next watch party, whether it's a Jason movie or a Star Wars, we'll see.
Yeah, I know. Like I said, I'm always bugging you because always interested to see who you're going to get and what we're going to watch next. If we ever get a chance to join you guys, it's always fun. And you guys get to be a part of that. That's the great thing about being a part of the community. And we get behind this 100% because, like, we're not kidding. Like, he's not kidding when he said it's like a 4.5-hour documentary. It's chock full of stuff. Like, full of movies that reminded me of movies from that I forgot about. Movies that I've got a new list of horror films that I've gotten since I saw the first documentary in this one. Now that I haven't got a chance to see it, or just getting introduced to, or forgot about, and like, oh, I got to get that. Just all kinds of great stuff. And then, like I said, I can't wait for the sci-fi one as well, because then I know Rob will be a little bit more interested in that stuff. But
but speaking of sci-fi movies, Andrew, are you familiar with the movie called Star Chaser: The Legend of Orrin?
Oh yeah, that's a great animated little bit of a Star Wars and Temple of Doom ripoff in a couple of scenes, but
I've been looking for
so
a
good.
decent
I
copy
love
for
Star
a while.
Chaser.
That was one of the movies I saw it advertised back in the 80s, the mid 80s when it came out. And it kind of fell off my radar, and for the life of me, I could not remember the title for ages. Like, there was that animated movie. What's it called? What's it called? What's it called? And I don't know how I just stumbled on Star Chaser. Yes, that's it, Star Chaser. It was just like, yeah, it was one of those. It's one of those overlooked movies that a lot of people just don't know about.
Has it been released on Blu-ray yet anywhere?
I don't think so.
I think it has. It certainly has been broadcast in high definition.
Okay.
Yeah, I know there's a good-looking transfer out there on the different video streaming services, but that's one that is one I recommend if you haven't seen Star Chaser: The Legend of Orrin. Check it out. It's right there with Heavy Metal.
It's on. I believe there's a Blu-ray.
Yeah.
It's both on Amazon and it's on Blu-ray.
Oh wow, I did not know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's movies like that we're uncovering. We're going back and remembering some of those movies that you might have seen on the video store shelf, or maybe you watched them on HBO one night in the late 80s or the early 90s, and you've forgotten about it for the last 30 years. We're bringing people together to talk about them, to reflect on them, to tell stories about how they were made, getting people from the movies to be able to bring in their memories and whatever they want to discuss. And it's always fun seeing everyone reflect on these films and how they made an impact and how they still stick with us.
Indeed. So yeah, really look forward to that. Latinos Land wonders if you're into new horror and if you've seen Murder in the Woods.
Yeah, I watch new horror films. There are movies that I love from the last decade, from the last handful of years. I haven't seen Murder in the Woods yet, but I'll definitely add it to the watch list and check it out. We were just having a great conversation about some new horror. We had a guest on one of our watch parties yesterday with the 80s horror community, the In Search of Darkness community. We had effects creator Chet Zar, who worked on Darkman. He worked on Army of Darkness. He worked on The Blob from 1988. And he was talking about some of the newer things that he'd contributed to, like a film called Bliss, where he had done some paintings for the movie about a woman who goes through kind of a vampire transformation towards the end. So it's cool to see good horror movies still being made. For me, sometimes they're few and far between, but I always enjoy when they show up.
Absolutely, I agree. And there are some true gems showing up even to this day. But again, there's so many cool ones from the 80s, and that's what I appreciate with your documentaries. You highlight movies that remain great to this day, but that haven't gotten the attention they deserve. And you absolutely help with that. On that note, Geno X87 also says, I hope there could be an In Search of Anime all about the boom of 80s and 90s anime OVA craze that I grew up renting tapes on.
Yeah, and that's something that's part of In Search of Tomorrow as well, is we're looking at some of those classics, not an OVA, but one of the greatest anime films ever made, Akira. That's on the list for ones that we're looking at covering, and one of our absolute favorites. But I'm a fan of 8-Man After, Iria, Zerum the Animation, AD Police. There's so many that were just fantastic from the 80s and 90s, and I love looking back on that stuff too.
Indeed, yeah. So much cool stuff. But tell us again about this flash sale that you have going on, to anyone that might have joined us late, because we saw the trailer for In Search of Darkness Part 2, which of course is a documentary that we've helped before. And if you missed that, now you can get a new chance. Now, when is it that this is going on sale?
Yep. So In Search of Darkness Part 2 is available to buy on February 5th. You can go to any of our social media and get the links at 80s Horror Doc, or you can go to 80shorrordoc.com and you can buy it directly from us. We have it available in bundles with the Blu-ray, posters, digital copies, soundtracks, and a just great chance to be able to get it if you missed out last October. We wanted to basically answer everyone who told us they wanted to get it again. So we're making the Blu-ray available, and we want everyone to get the chance starting on Friday the 5th, going to the 14th.
Yeah, and when you do on the 14th, we of course will tweet and share about that. But to everyone listening, you see that link that's on screen there now that Natasha Cloutier says there, that has a reference number towards the end there, 76. That's our Midnight Edge's code. So if you do order, then use that one, because that way we can show that we sent you. That's the way of saying that. So that would be most appreciated.
You know, I just want to say to Andrew, the other thing too is, I know a lot of anime fans dump on Carl Macek, the late Carl Macek, who was the guy behind Robotech. But if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have had Robotech coming here. He was the guy that first helped bring Robotech to the U.S. in the 90s, in the 80s, like in the late 80s, 1988. I remember I was playing in three theaters: New York, Washington D.C., and Los Angeles. I was like, damn, I don't get to see this on a big screen. And people were just looking at me like, you like this? You're insane. Because it was a far different world than it was in the 80s than it is now. Really.
Yeah, that was an incredible part, or a very important part too, of how anime made it to the States. Was guys like Carl Macek were bringing the films to the theaters, and then they were lining up distribution through different companies. I remember being a huge fan of Starlight Pictures and Orion's releases of all of these different anime properties, anime films, and anime series and OVAs, and that wouldn't have, led to the boom of anime that was created from there if guys like him hadn't have basically been pioneers and brought it all over here for us.
Yeah, one of the big criticisms of Carl Macek was that, he repurposed Macross, but the whole thing was, at the time, you needed at least 65 episodes for a syndication deal. Nobody was going to buy a series that was 36 episodes long. And so a lot of Macross is still intact, the general storylines, but he just had to make the whole narrative run through 85 episodes. That was the thing. It's just make some sort of coherent continuity out of. Like, yeah, some stuff gets sacrificed, but along the way. But without that, we wouldn't have had the anime boom in the 90s.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I still even appreciate the fact that Macross Plus was a thing. And just like you're talking about with Robotech and all these other great properties that made it over here, that's a really, again, pivotal thing for us as fans. And we look back on that stuff for the sci-fi properties, absolutely. And again, when we have more news to share on In Search of Tomorrow, we'll be getting the word out. But right now, we're telling everyone about In Search of Darkness Part 2, and we're happy to be able to give everyone the chance to pick that one up.
All right, sweet.
Very, very cool. All right, Tom, was there anything else we had for today?
Other than Waxworks is finally doing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 soundtrack, no. And I know nobody else cares about that but me, but yeah.
but you care so much about it that you more than make up for the rest of us. So.
I think so, because I've been bugging them for about a year now. Where's Secret of the Use? So, yeah.
Put the ninja rap on it.
I will
say for that one, I do love David Warner showing up in that. Definitely a highlight.
I mean, I've got that version, but I mean, I'm talking about the actual score because I actually kind of like the score of the second film better than I do the first one, but that's just me. But anyway, no, I was just glad to see that. Other than that, no, this has been such a slow news day outside of losing Dustin Diamond, which is pretty much kind of taking over the news now.
Yeah.
So,
well, we're currently snowed in, so on the East Coast. So slow news day.
What has changed though? Everything's been shut down for months anyway.
Yeah, that's true. Not a whole lot's changed. We just have no
right
snow now.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's okay. It's another fucking Blur's day. So anyway, I want to thank Andrew for taking the time, coming back and talking to us. We always have fun talking to you, and hopefully we get to hang out again soon. And whenever you get some more info on upcoming things, you can come and share that with us as well. We're looking forward to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you guys for having me on. It's always a pleasure.
Absolutely. And it's a pleasure to have you on. And also it's a pleasure to have every single one that's been watching us. And yes, Larry, Screech is gone, as you'll see many talking about. But with that, I'd like to again say thank you to Andrew for joining us, to Natasha for being our trusted wrench today as well. We really appreciate that. And to Sounded and everyone else who has been watching. We wish you all a continued great day. And be sure to check back later tonight for the ladies of Toxic Femininity. Because
we should be having a show tonight.
Yeah, because there's more cool stuff that's happened this week, even if it's a slow news day today.
I think the girls are going to be talking about Gina and how the whole hashtag was used the other day and stuff like that. So we'll see how that goes. I know they're working on whatever it is they're going to talk about tonight. As I say, I generally leave it up to them, so we'll see what they come up with. So until then, was there anything, Andrew, that you wanted to discuss real quick before we had to go, or anything else you wanted to plug?
Yeah, just head over to 80shorrordoc.com, get a copy of In Search of Darkness Part 2 starting Friday. We've got the 10-day flash sale going on, and join the In Search of Darkness community. And we'll all have fun with some great watch parties coming up, and we'll just keep celebrating classic 80s horror, and then we'll get on to classic 80s sci-fi.
All right. So until, later tonight for me and Wednesday for Andre, take care, everybody. I think we might be on Mr.